I'll play a requiem in your honor. Stronger, build the crescendo, and gentle. All is as I orchestrate it. The beating of your heart is a disturbance. May I play you something? Open the gates to paradise.
Ever since I defeated the witch, I haven't been myself. The hallucinations, they just keep getting worse. You will all disappear from my sight! What was that? Why am I wielding the witch's power? Me the witch?
This way! Sorry, but I have no intention of losing.
Pleased to meet you. I'm sure we can be of great help to one another.
Those seeking revenge must pay the price. Tremble with fear! Goblet of Oath. Heed my call. Everything falls to the wayside in the face of ruthless power.
That the best intentions can lead to the worst outcomes. Back then, I didn't know. I'll never forget the moment despair darkened those hopeful eyes. But all I ever wanted was for everyone to live in peace. All I ever wanted was a world where everyone was happy. And just like I wanted, the war was over. Because there was no one left to fight in it. But this side of the story will never come to light, since there's no one who wants to hear the truth. I won't ask for forgiveness. You don't need my excuses. For the sake of peace, I'll be the villain I have to be. Time to end our twisted fate. Facts aren't what's important. What matters is what we perceive as the truth. When you look at me, who do you see? A butcher or mankind's savior? Will you be the one who sees through it all and understands me?
Trust in your queen! For this is a special invitation that will change your life. So I hope you're ready for Miracle Maid Kingdom!
Imagine how you would feel if your family was slaughtered. If the killer was revered as a hero of legend. Wouldn't it be horrifying? The screams of my enemies will be a requiem for the passing of my kin. Their blood will warm the corpse of my brother. I have no use for pride and honor as a warrior. All that remains is a void of emptiness and rage. Until the heart of my final enemy is run through, we won't stop. We'll wait, Ilian.
로드 가문의 이름을 이어받았으나 뜻대로 이루어지지는 않았다는 게 문제였지. 이걸 들 수 있는 자는 자네뿐일 거야. 날 위해 목숨을 바치려 했던 제뉴와 경에게 감사와 경의를 담아 로드의 기사로서 손에 쥔 것에만 만족하던 내게 서로가 유일한 주인공이라고 말해줘. 우리의 만남은 필시 운명일 것이다. 그러나 필멸자와 불멸자가 감당할 아픔은 온전히 그의 몫이 되었으니. 이 녀석들이 진짜. 널 다시 만나는 날 들려줄 이야기가 부족할 일은 없겠어. 그렇지. 기대하고 있으라고.
And welcome everyone to Epic 7 World Arena Championship 2024. It is time for the European server, the Europe qualifiers before the main matches. MG Clef once again. How are you guys doing? Did you get some sleep, Divine? Did you get some sleep, Valky? How are we doing right now?
Absolutely not. I knew I didn't have the time for that. Cooked myself a nice meal, had some delicious cake, and then took a nice cold shower, slammed some energy drink, and here I am. I am ready to go. We saw some exciting matches, and you know, Europe server is known for playing their defense as opposed to how hard they cook, so really excited to see what adaptations we will see for our contestants today. Divine?
I don't understand the question. Do I not look well rested to you?
Certainly not. You're full. Ready?
These games will wake me up. They'll be good enough to wake me up. I'm sure. We get some exciting action out of Europe server. I know they're known for just bringing their all plus a little bit extra all to the table, and I'm more than happy to devour every little bit of ilm on serving.
Divine, you might need a little bit of coffee. Got my energy drink, got my coffee, got iced tea, I got water. I got all type of caffeine and hydration tools needed for me. As we are about to have some exciting European players getting through the overview first. We'll be going over this champion, $50,000 USD. Very strong right now. $20,000 for the second place. Third, fourth, $10,000 each, and then we go down to as long as you make it into the main matches, $2.5K. We started with the qualifiers yesterday with the global, went through Japan. Now it is time for Europe. As doubler, it's like this every single year. We have Japan and EU on the same day, usually. But the difference is that one seed, only one from Japan. And we already had that was Nekaboro. Now we're about to find out the one player from European server going on to the main matches, following with Asia, Korea, and then the group draw. In a few weeks after the balance patch, that's exactly when New Moon Luna will be globally opened, allowed in the tournament into the main matches. So we will be playing in different patches when we get into the main matches. And talking about the seeding, 2 from global, 2 from Asia, 2 from Korea, Europe, Japan, and into the tournament draw. Then we get into the double elimination tournament with the main matches with the 8 best players around the world. Let's talk about the players.
Thank you for covering that, Divine. Yeah, that's what I'm excited for. Some of these guys are some of the highest ranked players on the ladder. And for me particularly, I'm super excited to see KHM in action. Not sure if the newer players out there know about him. He is known as the father of the French defense, the originator of I Want to End Legend. He comes up with drafts so consistent, everybody wants to copy him.
Let's see if he can create something else in the tournament that everybody else will be following. Not just him, we have Kenny, elecsat, and also Samu. Very well known throughout the community from EU. That's the first four players. We have 4 more. Gruvia, Oskizu, Khhm, and Matayoh. 4 more players out there, but at the end, we will only have 1. Any specific highlights you want to say about these players?
Well, for me, I'm actually keeping my eye on Matayoh because he's actually somebody I know personally from the community. He hangs out all the time, and whenever he pulls up in a mock lobby, I won't spoil anything, but let's just say he is one heck of a chef. He always pulls out some units I never even knew were viable, and he plays them in interesting combinations.
Interesting combinations. I'm excited. I can't wait. And I can't wait if we will get to see his play first or not, because from the quarterfinals, again, we will have 2 matches, not all 4. So those are the players for Europe. And going to the tournament tree, KHM versus Kenny with the first match. Alexa versus Samu. We usually have just 1 match of the top and 1 match from the bottom. So let's see which match we will actually have on the screen later on.
I think it's understandable that we're only seeing the top bracket because these are some very highly contested matchups, especially KHM. We know how strong he is, so no surprise that he wants to be seen. And the other one as well, elecsat versus Sama. I don't know how much you remember from last year. That is actually a grudge match continuing from last year. elecsat, one of the few known cleavers in this current meta, as well as Sama, playing that tank down defense, shielding himself versus all of that incoming damage.
Of course, same events happening for EU. Also, make sure to grab all the leaves possible. Of course, the second password will be out later, so I will also try to give you a hint when it's going to be out, and make sure to pick up everything, not just the boxes in game. And if you have missed the coupon in game yesterday, the Luna Spear, make sure to grab that too. Of course, if you open your mailbox, it's highlighted on the right side, so you can't really miss it, just to make sure, because if you miss it, you just do not have the emote unless they give it to you later again. So unexpected password box, that's going to be revealed later. And also, if you are watching the video, you will get some more through the web event. So those are the extra that we have as the events. So that's it about the overview.
Those leaves are coming in clutch right now, especially we got what 54 minutes now, I'm sorry, of hunt buff or rift left.
Yes.
So if that's on the boards for you, make sure you reset your hunt and rift runs and look forward to those surprise password boxes.
Yeah, I don't know how fast you can actually have your rift team, depending on your speed. I think you can burn about in an hour. How many leaves can you go through? Okay, exactly.
You know,
to the math.
20, 30? Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not quite sure of that, but I know somebody who would. And if you're wondering about that, I would head on over to my boy Tristan. He's got the freshest guides, always helping people one shot.
One shot, one man team, 2-man army. He's got a lot of PvE action, of course. And I believe we have one more. Yes!
There it is.
Like so, 7 likes? Is that it?
Is that either so or 50? I'm hoping that's so.
It's likes,
likes 07
I think
likes.
it's likes 07 likes. No 5.
It's,
Yeah,
it's either
like
likes
07.
07 likes or likes 07 likes.
Yeah, likes 07 likes. I think that's the password. No 5. Excuse me on that. Yes, make sure if it doesn't work, ask me again or try something. I think it's likes 07 likes. Make sure to put that in.
Looking at it in
Thank
Twitch
you,
chat
guys.
right now. It should be 07.
Yep. 07. For our commentators, yes, Valky Divine. Thank you for staying up so late. I know the hours are late for Americas, but because EU, this is actually prime time for EU. It's around lunchtime, I believe, for a lot of European players. So that's exactly why we have this time zone specifically for the European players. Yeah, very good.
I'm happy to let our European counterparts know that the sun is just about to crack over here, showing itself for the first time. And I think that's actually how I'd like to phrase it when it comes to the European condition in this setup, right? There's one guiding ray of light, one sun, one strong force of personality that other people in the spear start to mask or make their dominant strategies around. And that's what happens a lot of times in these smaller regions, right? It's not that it's a different meta just for the sake of being a different meta. It's that through the players they interact with and that they bounce off of, they sort of are within their own self-contained spear. Now, how that comes out from there into the match, we'll see in a couple seconds, but KHM is that big global sun that everyone is sort of revolving around, and KennyMcCormc has to be the one to defeat that stalwart star.
Let's see. KHM, Kenny, very well-known names from Europe. It's been years of history. Let's see who makes it out. This is the first matchup that we have for the quarterfinals. And also, guys, we're also reading chat. Let us know what time it is from your own time zone, from your own bedroom, or wherever you're watching from, because this is global. It is indeed global, not just for the European players. We're all here watching this. 10 a.m., 5 p.m. We're all over the place, man. 5 p.m. in Singapore, 11 and 10? I don't know where you got the 10 from. Okay, it is 6:10 in Korean time, too. 11:10. Okay, we're global. We're everywhere around the world. Oh, man. KHM that Tywin and Albedo. We have some Albedo lovers in each server. Bucky, do you have anything to say on that?
I don't think anybody is surprised to see the Albedo A Tywin as well as the DDR in his most picked units. He's the inventor of that draft. And I think the storyline tonight will be seeing whether or not these other players from EU will be able to be the originator, so to speak. Because KHM, he plays this draft the most, and he knows these matchups in and out. And I think that win rate shows that 80.8%, if not the highest among all players, definitely the highest among EU. So, you're gonna have to perform so well in order to match up to hits.
Yeah, 80%, including global, including Japan. KHM is the highest. Of course, we are yet to find out the win rate for Asia and Korea, but that is super, super high up there. And on the other side, here's Kenny, most Vanguard unit, Landy.
KennyMcCormc with a lower win rate than we've seen out of some players before, but also, I believe, up to now, the most matches played, enduring over 241 losses. Yeah, with a 172% win rate, he's come in here with a guard on the land, as you saw, a very consistent and core character to the strategy. Not a lot of RNG with her, somebody that just performs the same, are on average from match to match, and is joined in by the Dragon's Bride Senya, and the Sea Phantom Politis, and the ambitious Tywin. Pretty much stalwarts in most of the meta so far, and banning out that Laya. So this is somebody who likes to engage and doesn't like to save too much for the end of the draft, wants to get out there, wants to blow people up with hard action, big debuffs, and send the victory home.
Excellent identify right there. He spams a lot of games as on his stream on Twitch as well. And going into this match here, we know tonight that a lot of these matches come down to the experience gaps between the haves and have-nots, the played and play-nots. And here we know KHM also is extremely experienced in these matchups, and I want to know who has more experience.
Exactly. And that will kick in, especially when you lose one game. And when you get down to this many matches on the broadcast, not make any mistakes. Let's see, game one and the pre-bans. Laya, Armin, Genua, Politis are pre-bans.
Oh, you'll make an excellent
And he stays
specimen.
a little bit consistent with the Laya ban, but then opts to instead ban out the Crimson Armin, perhaps a shot at KHM's preferred draft while picking himself up an ambitious Tywin and Abyssal Eufiend to seal the duo deal.
Ooh, and this not only takes away one pick for KHM, but also we've seen tonight when you have that ambitious Tywin, you're, I wouldn't say completely immune, but you're definitely protected versus that Nakwol. She can't press S3 on you the first turn, drops the cooldowns, and then binds your team, putting you in such an awkward spot, and it disables counterattacks from the Abyssal Eufiend herself. And Abyssal Eufiend being such a huge player in so many of the winners matches, we saw Xander play her of day one to an excellent effect. So high upset potential here, honestly.
Angel Light.
Light.
You know who I am.
Where's she been all this time?
Yeah, and
Let
there it
debuffs
is, the
reign.
knock wall. Looks like KHM, first pick, we covered this earlier, when you are playing that control composition, you can telegraph that from a mile away and let your opponent know what's going on. And here, you are not only dropping one, but two, but three debuff units, and KHM is saying, you're not playing the game, I am.
And with that many debuff,
The
Kenny
stars light our way.
going super defensive. Newman Bunny and Elena on top of that.
Two Soul Weavers out of Kenny is a very strong response, but it does leave a little bit lacking in terms of the DPS category. Abyssal Eufiend currently up on the board, but really at the end of the day, KennyMcCormc is going to have to find some kind of option at the bottom of his draft there to sort of secure that big threat position. Otherwise, he risks having all his major players banned out, which might not even be too much of a bad thing. I know Europe likes to take it nice and slow, and I know they're doing it just for me. They want to keep me locked into the action for as long as possible, but there's my savior Auden, who might be able to blow things up with her massive DPS and her counterattacks quick enough to save my soul. Oh, speaking of SOS.
Ooh, okay, yeah, designed to beat down these dark DPS units. Abyssal Euphine looking like she's in a little bit of a trouble here. Kenny with the solo DPS Euphine. Not the best matchups DPS-wise into the Auden as well as Navy Captain Landy, but no mitigator for KHM might be his saving grace there. Fire Ravi locked in for KennyMcCormc. Decent matchup into the Navy Captain Landy, and not so much affected by the injury when played into these debuffs matchups.
And finishing the draft with Fire Ravi, and the bans are Savior Auden and that Fire Ravi for Kenny.
The bans came out pretty towards the later half of the draft, but that just goes to show how threatening those picks were. Goodbye, Louis. As we get into the game, by the way, just a reminder for everyone at home, check off your bingo board if you had KHM match with no mitigation. Not something I thought was going to be a strike on the bingo board, but it's here nonetheless, as Moon Bunny Domino starts moving things along with a combat readiness push-up for her allies and a helping hand of attack buff for the team.
And
very interesting choice there. Not really cleansing anything, but ooh, wow. Not will waste no time. Just seals the ambitious Taiwan off that first turn. No more cleanse for KennyMcCormc, at least in the short term. Oh, actually no. Blue Elena right there needs to push her buttons, and she needs to go now. Drops her final cleanse. Kenny completely out of cleanse options, but will be able to protect his team as well as have that increased effect resistance, potentially cheating out his way against more debuffs.
Was that a Spirit's Breath we saw in the AOL?
Oh, it might just be. I mean, Spirit's Breath is so strong on this character. When you have it on her, every time she casts that ultimate, it's going to lower its own cooldown, as well as when she activates the passive, lowering that ultimate cooldown again, and it's so oppressive on Angel of Light.
More single target attack counterattacks, put that off on your bingo board as well, and it's really raising the threat index. If there's something to highlight on the map right now, it's going to be the bars right under Navy Captain Landy there on left side, and Abyssal Euphine on right side, because they're both racing to let massive pools of damage out with a little bit of cleansing of debuffs coming from the Elena right there.
Here's Angel of Light trying to lead everything.
Oh, we're looking to strips most of the units. I mean, Bunny Dominion as well as the Elena are generally high effect resistance units. And now Noctwall looping back again, misses the seal, but will be able to land that Venom and get a little bit of damage in for herself.
Suffering a counterattack in the same time, one more little tap on the Euphine and she'll be ready to let rumble.
And the provokes continue from Taiwan.
No anymore.
Almost full for Euphine.
Oh, and he goes for the slow burn here, but barely misses the kill on the Angel of Light. Actual 1 HP! I can't believe what I'm seeing. There is no way this Angel...
A counterattack that's assuredly there to put down 3 of the enemy team as soon as possible. I mean, I can't wait to see that one in the replay. That counter was clean, just like my man's face over here. Well shaven and well done, yeah. Within the white room as well, as you could tell. I'm pretty sure that's where it happens. That's the same room you go to in the afterlife. But seriously, what a massive win, especially for that Abyssal Euphine, finding a way to carry through all of that damage and get ahead of the Navy Captain Landy in terms of putting out pressure on the opponent and sealing the deal for that win.
And that type of decision making is exactly what puts some of these players in the position they're in. It's the experience that lets them see, wow, it is time I need to push my Abyssal Euphine's damage. Even though he missed kill on the Angel of Light by 1 HP, just the principle that he burned puts KHM's team so far behind in terms of their HP total that 1 extra Elbrus proc did him in.
I can't believe we actually have a meta with this least amount of Angel of Light. She was always there and somewhere, but we don't really see her as much. And KHM not only having the most active Landy, Captain Landy the first game, so Kenny Does grab the very first, but we continue into round number 2, game 2. Let's wait for the pre-mans.
KHM has to be feeling a little bit on edge after, I mean, he basically got the tablecloth pulled underneath from him last match when he lost 3 units in one single attack, and that is the power of the Abyssal Yufin, who knock Wall as well as the ambitious Taiwan band away for both players, and now once again picks himself up that Death Dealer Ray for the first pick.
And that's really a sad state of affairs to see on the Nakwal ban because of Bind itself. Bind, the debuff that Nakwal's putting out, prevents characters from taking out of action turns. What does that mean? It means when you do a single target attack, Abyssal Yufin doesn't freak out for no reason and end up hitting your whole team. But he wasn't able to get it consistently applied last time, and he may need to find a new option of making sure that this specific character on screen right now doesn't freak out and ruin everything for him a second time, because it only needs to happen one more time for him to be sent packing home permanently.
And you can tell these players like generally what they did for the last match. Kenny picks up the first pick, Abyssal Yufin, as well, just to cement his strategy once again. He felt comfortable about how the match broke down and how KHM responded, but no A Taiwan this time. He does pick up a Bellion, and in this spot, I'm inclined to think that is one of those protection set defensive Bellions, played as a main tank as opposed to a bruiser.
Ah, okay. A lot for the defense as a main tank Bellion that we have not really seen too many times, even from the other servers. Here comes Blood Moon Haste, as there are some really high tier heroes still left, albeit in that BIM protection slot.
Oh, yup. And, you know, given the experience last match, he knows that Yufin will be hitting quite hard. And just in case he loses another unit, I mean, Haste swings that tempo right back. And whoa, what is that? Is that a Solitaria?
Solitaria locked in with band protection as well.
Usually you don't pick this unit without your opponent maybe showing some type of focus unit, right? When you see that Urban Shadow Shoe, when you see the Remnant Violet. Oh, wow! Kenny is really cooking.
Really?
He's picking Solitaria as a form of control, and Sharoon taking away buffs as well as laying down injury. No Death Dealer Ray, but Sharoon will still be able to get her done.
Might be looking for a longer game from Kenny, just to have that Yufin main source damage or to lock down the opponent with Solitaria. And KHM now rolling his head a little bit with the last 2 picks.
One thing to keep in mind as well with the Sharoon on the board is her passive Just Trust Me, in which she'll be pushing herself up the combat readiness bar when enemies are present on the field with buffs enabled. And there's already plenty of buffs to go around on left side, but in addition to those, a prot set on any one of these characters will also count and actually serve as possibly a detriment for the Sharoon to take advantage of as the draft closes out with a Meteor Koeric and a Destina.
Even Destina for Kenny. Very defensive, as you can tell.
That is so defensive. I might even change my opinion on earlier. Now I don't know what the Bellion is on. What if the Bellion's the damage unit? Because KHM, if he bans that Abyssal Yufin away from Kenny this time, he might just be up damage and... Oh, wow. No, KHM respects it. Takes out the Destina as well as the Lone Crescent Bellona. With so many AoE attacks, with the Solitaria, Bellion, and Abyssal Yufin doing all of that, her counter attacks are going to be a force to be reckoned with, so immediately removed.
Yes, we'll see with Kenny one up. Let's see, game 2, KHM needs to bring this home.
I mean, KHM absolutely knows that he has to win here, and that's why he brought so many venerable DPS characters to the draft on his side here, and he's got all the options locked up on deck to make quick work of KennyMcCormc should he show any form of weakness upcoming right here.
Ooh, lands, what is that? 6 out of 8 debuffs? Definitely putting Kenny in a weird position, and whoa! That Meteor Koeric snapped the Altaria in half.
lot more
Her
damage.
HP total completely disappearing. And now with that tempo, Albedo's going to be able to drop a whole load of damage on her. How much is that defense break? Almost sends her packing.
663.
Neighbor of the beast, right?
I don't think she's long for this world. Unbuffable on top of her head as well means she won't be able to go back into stealth. So sending that ultimate in, we are just looking to do a stun. Stuns the Albedo for the next round, and I think it's time to wave bye-bye to the Snow Princess.
What is it you desire?
The rest of the team taking their lickings from that venom and nodding off a little bit from the sleep, as Abyssal Euphine hasn't been able to get activated with any of her combat readiness. This is almost a complete opposite flip of last match's situation, but now, in addition to what just happened, those provokes go out. So it's going to be a little bit until KHM can get activated, and while that happens, all those pesky buffs might need to go away through an additional venom, speed down, and plenty more from the Sharu.
A whole lot more debuffs
man.
chunking in. Yes, Valky?
Ooh, I was about to say KHM took so much of a tempo lead, but with the Abyssal Euphine, with the Sharoon, is there room for him to swing a comeback? A counter attack there as well, landing one Venom and delaying cooldown by a whole turn. Now, I think there is actually a little bit of space for KennyMcCormc to make his comeback with that Abyssal Euphine. I mean, we saw from last match, she could win any match, and she is now slowly but surely building up her fighting spirit, ready to jump off the walls again.
With a tankier team, the Soul Burn on the Abyssal Euphine doesn't do quite as much damage as it did before, but what does do a shocking amount of damage is the Blood Moon Haste. One simple follow-up, and that blind is under half already.
Pick your poison.
You're shown.
Which
Venom's working both sides.
Unfortunately, though, Sharoon does get put to sleep for another turn. We know KHM is an extremely experienced and skilled player, meaning that if he gets to play the control game, he should be able to navigate his way through these turns and not make any mistakes, and that's looking like exactly what he's doing.
The attack up
Another
the
good bout
damage,
of
but it
AoE.
activates Albedo.
Bellion just critted 4 characters, and she crits 4 characters. This is a hybrid Bellion. You know, I thought she was going to be a full tank with the protection set, but that Bellion is hitting back pretty hard. I mean, as hard as she can with Albedo to mitigating that critical hit damage.
Worry not.
A miss on the counterattack, but the counterattack comes out as well, although not very favorable. Unlike other characters, Euphine is going to be gaining her bar, not only through attacking, but through being attacked as well. The Blood Moon Haste might have just advanced the Doomsday Timer for what the rest of the squad is facing.
I'm growing tired of this.
Getting the cooldowns back as well. Mediator Coerc able to throw out all of those Venoms. Sharoon now being on the other end, getting her Venoms removed, and a little bit of a cheeky duel right there. Oh, taking out the Albedo from Kenny's side. Now getting free auto attack, and the extra damage is putting so much hurt on him. Although getting the cooldown back as 3. Kenny needs to be able to strip everything that Mediator puts up, and she does.
She does.
That's
And
huge.
Sharoon.
The Venom pudding. You need this injury. You need. Whoa!
Another
Okay.
dual attack. That's some
You're
value
making
right there,
excellent
ladies and
specimen.
gentlemen. Almost getting
This all runs its
KennyMcCormc
course.
re-engaged into the game. Now, this is going to be another round of debuffs coming out towards him, but it might not matter too much. It's definitely not going to matter if Euphine just ignores them with her immunity.
Counter.
Another counter attack, moving the turn back. Guardian
She's
Ice
here.
Crystals looking like it's saving. Yes, but Abyssal Euphine is here, and so is her trauma, the memories, the voices, all of them cleaving through, getting rid of those buffs, doing the damage, and activating Blood Aura as one man is already down.
That's the scary part. You had to go there. There was no shot you didn't. But
Soulburn.
as you go, Blood Moon Haste barrier is so huge, and can you do enough damage to overcome that? You're gonna need to press Soul
trauma?
Burst into the Mediator Coerc instead. Wow, and the triple speed from the trauma.
That's so much
lets him
damage!
get another turn. Oh.
but can't go through.
Is it gonna be? I actually don't know which way this fight is going. Blood Moon Haste, though, he is ready. Blood Aura ready for himself. Albedo detonates that Venom on the Sharoon, and now this is the turn. Does the Haste turn this fight around?
He's going to have to. He sustained some injury that will hurt his max damage, but it's more than enough to make simple work of the Abyssal Euphine. The demon is put down for good, and the kid stands tall. Blood Moon Haste wins handedly for KHM, doing a little bit of a song and dance there, swinging back and forth and enjoying the qualms of his victory.
Haste looking good, finishing off with that Moon Slash at the end. That took a little long because of all those Venoms. Even with the Abyssal Euphine, having that trauma, sometimes you think that can actually just clean up, but it was just not enough against all 4 units.
And when you're playing this Death Dealer Ray composition, it doesn't show in the charts, it doesn't show in the numbers, but you know those extra ticks, the Venoms, the detonations, as well as the injury blocking away any form of sustain and comeback potential for Kenny. You knew this Ray did work, even though he's only credited for 15% of it.
It was going to be very tough going through that Blood Moon Haste with the amount of damage that Kenny actually had. I think that was one big threat. 1-1 tied. Oh man, maybe it's time to ban out that Haste. Euphine?
Well, I don't know if the Haste is such a big problem. That match was 38 turns, but it really seemed like it came back to those 3 back-to-back turns Abyssal Euphine had when the priority was chosen not to go for the Blood Moon Haste. I know the damage numbers might not have looked good for it, but putting him down and out for good there might have enabled a better situation for KennyMcCormc. But we'll just have to see where things go from here, as they're tied up 1-1, and only one can advance while one goes home.
That's right. The winner stays when you win from this match. And by the way, since there are some questions, a new Moon Luna is not allowed until the main matches or the event matches. So that's why she's globally banned for the qualifiers, just to double check, guys. But everything before that, even the exclusive equipments, if it's in the game, like literally next week, I read the rulebook, and the exclusive equipments, the moment they come into game, they are allowed in the tournament. So as soon as you can grind, I don't actually know how long it takes to grind the new EE for RB and the Briar Witch, but it should be allowed when it's in game.
Those are going to be some interesting choices, and going right back into the draft. Oh, wow. Okay, I was wondering why these were being picked, but Abyssal Euphine removed for KennyMcCormc, as well as that Blood Moon Haze. Both players kind of on point with what they're doing, taking out the most valuable unit against each other, whereas Kenny now finally picking up that Death Dealer Ray for himself, getting to play that first pick game. KHM, with his options removed, is going to go for a bit of a classic. We saw a little bit of that action both yesterday and today with the Conqueror Lilius, as well as Navy Captain Lanny. Those were the dominant forces of last year's WC.
Having some anchors with Landy. See, Lilius seems to be the 1.5 second tier right after all these bans. Savior Odin's Yo locked in.
Wow, you know, that's actually what I was wondering. KennyMcCormc, to my knowledge, is actually a cleaver. He's a very fast and aggressive player, so it was really a surprise to me watching him meet KHM in the mosh pit, just trading hit for hit. So seeing him go Aiden as well as the Zeo, I wonder if he's going, you know, with that Zeo in band protection slot, if he's going to go for 2 follow-up units and just try to run over KHM.
Have the right
Possibility
counters.
Certainly exists.
Oh, me again?
Green to lean.
I've talked about many times before, but the mean beating machine of Green Celine is here and has done a great job in the tournament thus far of effectively silencing Death Dealer Ray before. We've seen so many people hold on to those valuable skills on Death Dealer Ray that can put to sleep, that can push up the team, simply because one attack from Celine, somebody might end up stunned, or even worse, somebody might end up dead.
Oh, wow. And once again, I think Kenny is going for the full injury composition. The Zeo is simply there to shut down the Conqueror Lilius turn 1, and from there, you got the Ray, you got the Sharoon, but oh, there it is. That's one of our favorites.
Spectre 10A all of a sudden for KHM.
I mean, when your opponent's entire strategy is hinged on these counter-attack units, there's no one better to pick when your auto attack, your S1 can't be countered, immediately ban away, as well as that Fire Ravi, able to hold the matchup down not only versus Navy Captain Landy, but also Dragon Brysenia, Celine, she can hold her ground as well.
Yeah. Ravi won't be making an appearance this match, as you just said, Valk. And of course, Spectre Tenebra, one of the favorite characters out of fleet players that we know, is not going to be on to the battlefield as we get into it immediately with the Zeo, of course, taking turn 1. The king is unsuppressible, and he makes his decree who must bow and get back in line in terms of combat readiness. And it's, of course, the queen herself, Conqueror Lilius.
Pushes her all the way in the back and sleeps her.
Wow, we know how much value she brings, not only with that vigor buff, but also pulling the dual attacks, especially if you can pull your Landy. That fighting spirit gain is massive, and now being not only pushed back, but put to sleep as well. KHM not missing a beat, identifying the correct target in this Sharoon. You do not want to have your buffs removed just like that. Sharoon now being put in a very uncomfortable scenario, missing a whole chunk of HP. Do not want to use her S3 quite yet, as she wants to wait for the Ray to put up Pestilence so she could detonate 2 waves of Venom instead of 1.
Speaking of detonate, we might just have a bunch of that damage going on, and quickly Sharoon is removed from the match. Such a staple from what KennyMcCormc had before, but she's gone in almost the hit of dawn as the sun starts to peek out a little bit here. She's nowhere to be seen.
Ooh, and that is going to be an extremely rough sequence. Now you got your Savior Auden going with the crit damage buff, but what are you... you're gonna have such a hard time bursting through these tanky, thick units sitting here on this battlefield.
But that the Slayer got one, so Lilius
Worry not.
gone from the field. Here's DDR. Can you pop it? There is that Celine.
Is that Celine, and you're giving her an additional opportunity to do damage, which is something Kenny is not a fan of at all. One last turn on the attack buff for the small child here, as he rips with the follow-up skill here, which shoots through defense with penetration quite easily, I might add. And there we go, the child is being put to sleep.
To sleep.
Kenny, you know,
so much, even through the F5.
I'm expecting Kenny to just go all in. He's already down a unit. And now Ray, if he doesn't press now, it's now or never. And he skips again. I think Kenny's made his decision. He's all-inning on this Savior Aiden win condition. He says, I don't need the Ray. I don't need the Sharoon. I'm just going to press Aiden. She's going to evade and bring home that win. And following through with that, barely survives.
Still standing.
And that's how you know KHM is the father of the French defense. So tanky, even with the crit damage buff, not enough to take it home.
I vow to be your companion.
Not getting much out of the hit there, but actually running down the Bastion of Hope, and with the increased frenzy as the match gets longer, might actually turn up the Death Dealer Ray. Does end up taking a little bit of debuffs, maybe possibly a stun from the Celine. Could be funny. Speaking on that note, he finally decides to let the S3 run rampant, and let's see the results right here.
Ooh, Celine, no intuition.
Worry not.
Even on a miss, that's half her HP. Savior Auden. Oh boy. You know, he was really banking on that being his win condition, but the green Celine says no with the attack buff, and and
Soul Burn as well. On the S3. It's another miss, but the miss doesn't seem to matter. It's going to put her in a grave anyway. The Savior of Thanaland is already gone from the battlefield, and this crooked doctor's the only thing left, and I don't think much hope's right on him. The salvo comes out clean, and it removes all squandered filth from the battlefield. The captain's done it again as victory goes over to KHM.
Big smile on his face, knowing he carefully navigated through that minefield. I'm sure he has a lot of experience playing versus extremely meta teams, but versus very interesting units like that Sharoon here, he sure did a good job knowing when to go for the kill, but also knowing how to approach this kill order, because sometimes that is all you need to know to win the battle.
Just bringing some cool action. Game 1 here with Aola, Angel of Light. One of the first one that we had on the broadcast. Knuckle lock in and the counters.
This is the moment where KHM learned definitively that he can't let these counters keep berating him one after another. He'd need a tankier sort of team to be able to weather the storm. You can see there, after just 3 of them, everyone blown away from the massive damage. And then following that up, we had the Death Deal Array, a constant that we're going to be seeing throughout today's tournament, and a European staple, with, of course, the Succubus Albedo making her display and almost putting down the Solitaria from that position with, I've got to say, my favorite to come out so far, especially from Kenny, the Sharoon, which we didn't get to see much for the 3rd game, but was such a dominant force here right before the end there in the 2nd match.
And, you know, it's a main unit. It's not a tech pick that he opts for here and there. She did so much work for him, trying to hold back all of these HP scaling units. I think in a different universe, we might have been able to see her take a win, but at the end of the day, though, it's the decision making that really made the difference here, especially in that last game. I think Kenny kind of had cold feet last minute, not going for that Aiden solo as he was planning on going, and when he did eventually unleash that Death Deal Array, Green Celine says no and just sent that Aiden packing.
Yeah, that's exactly why Celine is being loved from so many players out there. She delivers damage and locks some of those skills, like Death Deal Array. And at the end, he did pop it, and eventually to Celine delivering the damage even on a miss. All it took was 2 misses to bring Savior out and down. And the last pieces of action of game number 3. And on top of that, there was still Landy to go through for Kenny. So it was going to be a very hard one to pull it. And KHM does go into the semifinals. I wonder what exactly is happening on the other side of the bracket.
Oh yeah, really curious to see how some of these matchups broke down. I mean, so many strong players. And, you know, who will, if at all, be the one to dethrone the King of Europe, KHM?
KHM got through first round. And we will actually have the other side. Not the other side, we will have elecsat Samu. So we are waiting for that some speed. It's Samu time. Hey, Divine.
Yeah. The sun is just peeking out, so I thought I'd get a little bit of that beautiful natural light coming out from God itself. And then I looked at the camera, and there's nothing. All right, I'll go back to the light. I really did think that was active. I could see the sun, beautiful orange coming in, but just wasn't enough.
Maybe in just a few hours. We'll check back. We'll check back how much sunlight
we'll be here
you
for a
get.
bit. We'll be here for a bit. Yeah. Well, as well as the tournament updates, I'll make sure to keep you updated when there's enough visible sun for me to bleed my eyes out with at some point. But really, when we're coming into the tournament, we've seen KHM, we've seen the master of this type of style and draft. Now we see all the people that come in his line, and I'm also assured if you're trying to copy the KHM style, you're not only going to possibly fail to live up to that standard, but you're going to be fighting people who are ready to fight KHM, who had preparations, who had strategies. And if you're not ready to weather the storm, you might not find safe passage at all in this tournament.
Yeah, it seemed like it,
you know,
could be
speaking of weathering the storm, I'm really curious to see how that grudge match plays out, because as you guys know, elecsat, only known cleaver in this entire bracket. And I mean, I think he sports an extremely unique flavor of cleave as well. I'm sure you guys have seen so many cleaves, and I will say, I don't know how many of you guys have, one, seen Commander Pavel cleave, and two, Fumir cleave. So I'm really curious to see if this is something Samu is bringing a shield to defend against, or if that is going to be something that he says, I don't want to touch it, I'm just going to ban it.
That's exactly the question that we will have going in. Elecsat, Samuhrado, both big names from Europe. Let's see who wins from the quarterfinals and go up against KHM in the semis. Still best of 3. And I believe we get the player data. As you mentioned, that guy with the eye patch in the middle, Shuri, what's he doing there?
Well, there's a little bit of a dirty playstyle forbidden by the annals in the European conviction, but every once in a while, out of all the tank down, out of all the Crimson Armin, out of all the Navy Captain Landies, out of all of that comes one destined, a cleaver, born of strength and brave enough to circumvent the horrid seas, somebody who can bring us to a faster conclusion to the match, a forbidden devil amongst angels. This man just might be our savior, or our devil.
Really excited to see. I mean, you saw that Fumir. She needs a fire as well as an earth unit to go ahead of her. So you bet you are going to see some unique cooks. And for Samu's side, I mean, wow, we got the right profile. Okay, yeah, not KHM's draft. Yeah, but instead of seeing the Death Dealer Ray, oftentimes he's opting for that Dragon Bride Senya. And I mean, if that doesn't speak to strength of these units, we're going to be seeing a whole lot of Albedo as well as a Taiwan coming out from him. Excited to see how he adapts his style to KHM's playstyle, where there's a lot more control.
Let's start unpacking these pre-bans as we get things started for game number 1. It's the second match for the quarterfinals from Europe server. Like said, Samu.
Now, outside of the game of Epic 7, we all have our personal lives. And sometimes you've got to set some things aside, and sometimes you've got to bring those elements of your personal life to the forefront. Samu, known as a renowned investment banker, picking and making the right decisions is quite literally his job. And right now, he's putting investment into these stocks, these highly profitable companies that are at the top of the game, with the Senya, with the Blood Moon Haste, but his opposition is already locked in the green-red-blue synergy, ending with the Fumir. Tell me why that's important here, Valk.
I mean, Fumir's passive elemental needs these different elements to trigger, so having sequenced these units, right, we talked about how important it is to speed tune your team, and nobody does that better than elecsat in this bracket. He's got the green Celine, he's got the Fire Shuri, and on top of all of that, he doesn't even ban the Zeo, because both of these units are stealth, Fire Shuri being on that, being on the Guiding Light, and Green Celine being stealth naturally, so Zeo can only really hold back this Fumir right here, and being third pick in the Vanguard slot, you know she's coming, and she is coming on strong.
Athletica, great pair for all the cleavers out there, even committing the Eternal Ludwig.
Now that you
possibly looking at it as an option, and indeed committing to it. That's what we've got on the board right now. Eternal Wanderer Ludwig and Faithless Lidica, while Tristan Wolf and Connor are both asleep. I mean, I can't believe it myself. And finally, ending it all off on Samu's side is the Belian, possibly going to be something that has to be banned out, especially if he wants to take advantage of the books on left side, because if there's anything a gamer like Ludwig loves, that's right, it's reading, ladies and gentlemen. And no, unfortunately, he'll have to stay home, banned from the public library, while Belian not going to be able to make it to the match either. Just starting off with the top 4 on both sides, having access to some powerful combinations on left side with the Fumir draft, and of course the tried, true, and tested stalwart stocks that Samu has invested in might just lead him to a glorious victory on right.
With those bands.
But
using all the time. Yes, Falky?
I was gonna say, I'm really curious what the Zio is going to do, because there's only one viable target and you're dropping it right on that Fumir, meaning one thing. Sama is trying to push back this Fumir, so even though you've set her up perfectly, he is trying to shut down any play she can make. Pushing her back with the Zio, bursting her with the haste, with the Senya. And once she goes down, I mean, the entire strategy might just crumble and fall apart. But Faithless Litica drops the S2, strips a lot of the existing buffs for Samuhrado side, and now going to be pushing up this Fumir. You know, you did push her back, but I'm going to inch up slowly. Drops that S3 onto the haste. 4-turn reset. No Blood Scythe for him available. And now Shuri as well, going to Q-tap the Sharoon in the back. Drops that damage as well. And now reads Celine.
Was
that a greater attack?
Was that Cap?
It's too late to say sorry now.
That looks like a greater attack buff, right? Oh
That's
my god!
And that's a dead unit, just immediately wiped off the face of the earth and bring out the Oath of Punishment, the one not attack skill that's going to piss off Celine even more as she takes a chunk out of the champion right there and right now. Now, you might say that's a dangerous situation. I'd never want to piss off Dragon Bride Senya, but with the full amount of protection on left side, with the skill nullifiers, with the damage coming out from this right here, right now, getting the sleep, getting the defense break, this actually might be an amazing play for left side as Samu's left wondering.
Elecsat though can't get happy too early. We did miss the strip on the Zio. Immunity and the barrier still on him. So a bit unfortunate for Elecsat. Sama might need to fling the Zio and use him to leverage as damage to close out Elecsat's composition. We don't have the time to wait for the damage to come through. We're gonna need to drop the Senya's AoE ultimate to clear out those skill nullifier, opening up the way for Zio to close out the game. And bop! One bonk takes out 70% of Blood Moon's haste. He might not be able to get to do his stuff.
You can't hide from my
but that might not
now
matter
we finally
much.
get the burn out of the Shuri. He's getting the extra turn here, ladies and gentlemen, and he might just be able to put down the Blood Moon haste for good there. A little bit of poison, but he didn't need to go that far because he is certainly dead and gone, and all that leaves is Senya and the small little Lust Child up front, and Zio is running out of those buffs, and when he does, he is not hitting on that stuff no more.
Find me.
Oh man, and Fire Shuri does miss the Guiding Light, making him the only viable Zio target with the extra slash taking him out, giving the Zio 50% combat readiness. And in a tight match such as this, you want all the combat readiness and all the turn initiative you can get. Faithless Litica cutting in here, needs to blind the Zio, doesn't land.
Yeah.
Capable.
Ooh, and now the Zio has his pick of the litter. I think Sama has this game on the rope. Takes out the
hit
Celine
disappear.
Vampiric Touch.
That's
Extra
it,
damage
Samu.
knocks out the Flit. Game 1 goes to Sama. Excellently manipulated, and with a bit of luck coming in though. Ooh. Sama taking out the first match of this first game of this grudge match set.
What a game, what a game. Like I said, Fumir, Shuri, Celine, not enough, even with that greater attack. It was a close one. Each player had some idea, a point that they actually had to win. 19 turns. A quick one in 3 minutes.
Oh man, and I was so impressed with the way Elecsat manipulated that entire draft, being able to take out the Dragon King Sharoon, and on top of that, when Senya got mad, that activated the intuition from the Celine, popping her off. It was just a bit unfortunate in the execution. Fumir, unfortunately, did not strip the Zio, and look at that, 4 kills on his side just because that Zio lived. You hate to see it.
once in a while, you're going to have those games, especially when you play in that unique playstyle. But Samu is well adjusted and bred to deal with all kinds of newcomers. And now the question is really up for elecsat. Do you shift? Do you change? Or do you stand stalwart in your belief that cleave is the way to go? The pre-bans come out and may give us a hint onto what the attitude is.
Oh, Fumir
And it's
ban.
a ban for Fumir. Doesn't even want to see that nonsense no more.
After another, isn't it?
Yup, and that's exactly what we're talking about when you are relying on this one core unit for your entire strategy. Sometimes a pre-ban is what it takes. We saw that earlier today with the Iseria when it came to Sanada Kuang, and here Fumir taken out for elecsat. I wonder how else he can cook his cleave, and there it is. Janua, big burst damage, true defense penetration coming through, as well as Urban Shadow Shoe able to lay down so much injury.
There could be lots of injury, but this Armin slowing things down for elecsat. No more cleave with this many bans.
I'd like to highlight actually here on the draft, we have two very variable units. What I mean by that is we have two units on the board right now that we've seen multiple builds of already throughout the tournament, right? So Albedo, we know we've seen her with a counter, we've seen her with speed and HP as well, and of course the Shu with her variable crit rate, getting some crit already herself, but going up to some insane levels of ER that we saw out of the Japan server. Anything could happen with those two units, and there's sort of the little wrenches in the plan both players are trying to throw in to keep their opponent guessing.
Peira locked in from elecsat, as well as Edward Elric against all the debuffs.
Ooh, Peira is going to be huge here. She's a character that I thought I was expecting to see a lot more for every single server just because of how buff reliant a lot of characters are now. Blood Moon Haste with the barrier, with the immunity, Blood Aura, and then you got the Death Dealer Ray, Pestilence, which can all be shut down by the Peira. And in this case, I think she'll do just that. And for the Sharoon as well, I mean, not too many ways to activate, but if it does, no Cascade for you.
And against Peira, DJB seems to be the answer that Samu has found for now. For that barrier inversion.
Can't fault him for that pick. Banned out right away. Barrier inversion as well as the cleanse for the debuffs is too strong. Taken out. And now Janua removed for elecsat as well. You are losing your highest damage source. So can the rest of your team scrap together and knock out this behemoth that is Sama's team?
Behemoth you must slay. Sama is an experienced player and one of my personal favorites to at least break it out of this tournament and make a splash in the tournament as a whole. Peira going up first on the bar with the S2 immediately coming out. A miss on the Albedo and only 2 debuffs coming out. Not exactly the output I'm wagering he wanted to see there.
What, you think this is a joke?
That is going to be very, very rough, but thankfully Shu is here to the rescue. Extra zap. That barrier will be protecting the Ray as well as the Senya from the extra damage and the injury, but at the very least, 2 of them are not immune to that effect.
Now with the DDR on the back, going to have the Cloud first.
I guarantee.
See how many are going to be put to sleep.
Worry not. The doctor.
Just the Edward Elric, another classic non-resist moment out of the Edward Elric, taking those debuffs, but he won't be taking them for long. This AoE attack will be hitting the enemy team. Do you have something to say about that, Edward? Yes, you do. Throwing back a little bit of damage all on his own and making sure that cleanse keeps him healthy and in the game for when he wants to throw down the buckle with that S3 of his.
And I'm so surprised after all of that, elecsat's team not tagged with too much damage of their own. Senya finally getting able to play Epic 7, going for the Urban Shadow Shoe, and now we understand why that is a Bastion of Hope Shoe. we've seen that on tanky players, but for a cleaver, not something I expected. Elecsat definitely kept that in the back of his deck, saved up for situations where he knows he can't cleave. Albedo, though, soul burning to reduce the cooldown on the ultimate, looking to slam it down into the Crimson Armor. When you kill a team, remove their tank first, remove their lifeline and their battery.
Some more damage,
It'd be
but
hard
a
to
lot
take-
of resist. Yes, Divine.
I was gonna say, it's gonna be hard to take out that battery when it resists something as important as the defense breaks, and you can see how much Samu had already invested in that prospect,
Ooh,
right?
stun.
In accordance with the Dragon Sharoon and the Albedo, he's going to need some if he wants his, frankly, lower damage comp to be able to bite through. And now he's starting to stack those attacks into the shoe. Why? Because the Bastion of Hope she has loses efficacy with each and every hit. And a couple turns into Battle Frenzy might mean he can finally claw back at her with another counter coming out, and 2,000 damage going round about the world. This game is heating up in the smallest of ways. Notice the subtle changes and watch these players adapt to them.
One more hit, one less stack of Bastion of Hope, and with that, the shoe has dropped about 25% of her total HP pool. The Sharoon going fishing for a stun once again, but not landing. These shoes have so much effect resistance, and they do not care.
A stun? Is it a blessing? Is it a curse? It hit a green unit. It even hit with a 30% chance because there was no barrier up, but it's the last thing you wanted to give. The cascade effect comes in true and rings with that true damage, putting down the shoe for good.
Ooh, Elecsat feels the heat. Now he's desperate. Soul burning into the Edward. We need to drop this HP pool, and we need to go fast. It lowers the cooldown for Edward, and now he knows that's his only source of damage left. You gotta do whatever you can to let this Edward fly.
Even having a soul burn.
A resistance on
Still
the soul
not
burn.
landing the stun.
I can't tell if this is a 15% or if the Heir just good at resisting. Heir now drops another wave of debuffs, landing 6 this time, a lot more than before. And that's definitely something you want to see, especially if you're behind in this scenario.
There's that protection.
Interesting turn up here for the Death Dealer Ray. Can't do much for his teammates who are unbuffable, but can he get them in the action? Absolutely he can. Pushing them up with the S2.
Bull can't push as well. The restrict will absolutely hold him there. I mean, wow, this Heir did kind of sack you a little bit with that stun on a green unit, but coming in clutch with these debuffs, at least for the second round.
Another set of resistance towards the S3 from the Albedo means that the stalwart tank is going to stand tall for just a little bit longer. As much as I thought this game had its predilections coming in, it could be anyone's game at this point, as another play of the fluke means another soaring, rising dragon from the deep.
Worry not.
Resist a classic Edward resistance moment. Don't you love it, ladies and gentlemen?
Could have been better for Elecsat.
Damage be like.
You know, the Elecsat lost his Bastion of Hope, so that's got to be a natural 15%. That's crazy. And now you can just play the game easy and slow. The Edward put to sleep for one whole rotation. How does Sama choose to play this? Soul burns it, puts the Edward back to sleep. He can't do his extra attack. No bouncing back of the debuff. And now Senya will be able to lay down the hurt. We're trying really hard to drop this Crimson Armament, and when she goes down, I mean, then that's when the damage really comes flying in.
It'll be her last chance to possibly put out this S3, so that's what I'd wager we're going to see here in a couple seconds. And really, it's all about the Edward Elric after that point. No, in fact, it's just the S1 coming out to play.
Still keeping that S3. I wonder why.
Yeah, and
There's
as
some
the
stun from
match
Heir.
drags on, Oh, that's another stun you don't want to see. Dragon King Sharoon still up on the board. Will be able to cleanse that stun. And to whoever doesn't have Unbuffable, give them Cascade, the extra fixed damage. You know, it goes one way for the Urban Shadow Shoe, and it's going to come back another to haunt him. Oh, man. Pestilence up for the Ray as well. Sama is starting to look tougher and tougher in this matchup.
You know, we did elect to pass on to the invincibility from the Armin, and that seems to be because the Edward would gain immunity from it. Very sad to see that anti-synergy really restricting his plays, but he's not going to be restricted from throwing back another equivalent exchange with 2 turn. That's right, 2 turn provokes on some of the front units on Samu's team.
Ooh, and the Albedo finally goes down. And that is why European players are the master of defense. They're able to just hold back so much damage, and why we see these essentially tanks getting into a wet noodle fight.
Hero again, the reveal
Life or death.
for the shield and the escort.
Was that her third
I think
S3
so.
Dog?
It's been so many.
Absolutely.
Which means Goblet of Oath is out of uses, if I believe I'm counting that correctly. No more skill turn down or cooldown decreases from her. It's gonna have to be all natural from here on out.
Soul burns one time, but misses the sleep. Oh man, now those debuffs are starting to actually come back and haunt Sama. Oh man, elecsat taking his time, trying to figure out what to do with this Edward. Finally took down the Albedo, and Edward now being the highest damage character on this entire board. The Crimson Arm is still hanging on with 1 turn of defense break above her. Oh, just keep on trucking, just keep on trucking.
It's absolutely fine. Don't worry about it.
Another stun.
If you can live on 1 HP, then 1 HP is all you need. That's the perspective right there from left side.
I mean, not wrong. And the last HP is the only HP that matters, but one more slap from the Ray does knock out the Crimson Armin and goes down. Ooh, hits the Ed. The extra attack takes out the Sharoon, and now Ed is going on his 3rd Soulburn ultimate as well, and we're going to run it right into the Dragon Bright Senya. Her HP pool eating through this, being eaten through by this injury. Looking so rough. Late into Frenzy, Edward's scaling is going to be able to outscale these units as well. Does the Ray have this? I'm not sure anymore. He doesn't care though. We are desperate. We're going to need to spread the plague. Let's see what lands here.
Smell that.
Oh, misses the sleep on the
Misses
Ed.
the sleep, and that's the important thing you have to keep in mind. He's been soul burning these S3s, and Edward Elric's S3 gets more powerful after each cast up to 3, so the damage it's doing is comparable to even the strongest DPSs.
Oh, and Sama really has to think himself. Senya is up next in the turn order. How does he approach this? 2 debuffs on his opponent's head. Soul burns the Ray into the Edward, and now Senya gets to go! Even on the injury, that sliver of HP should be enough to take him out!
Senya!
Oh!
Here's Senya with a massive S3. It's going down board. Is it going to be enough? Of course it is. Yes, Edward is felled finally. The raid boss of this entire fight is gone out for good, and we're holding on to what little we have left, but that little has just put us into danger. Oh no, the Oath of Punishment coming out.
It's called Divine, and elecsat couldn't handle it. Samu, 2-0 score.
And Sama takes home the grudge match. 2 years in a row he's fought elecsat in the first round, and 2 years in a row he's sent him home. He has to be feeling good about that one, taking a quick drink and thinking to himself, nice, now he needs to prepare for that next matchup. What a tight series. I know it's a 2-0, but holy moly, am I on the edge of my seat.
63 turns, 10 minutes? Are we sure we were there for 10 minutes?
I don't know. I was hyped the entire way through. Like we said, we knew these matches were going to be tight. And wow, that did not feel like 10 minutes.
That was a lot of turns. Possibly the longest single game ever so far this year in the qualifiers.
Yeah, just so many interesting interactions there. Of course, you had the Urban Shadow Shoe making her early appearance and having to be dealt with. You had the Peyra getting some inexplicable debuffs and stuns, especially on a green unit like Albedo, but that actually activating the Dragon King Sharoon. And then, of course, you had the choice from the Armin not to S3 in order to prevent Ed from getting immunity and enabling him to do those equivalent exchanges, like while we're getting an exchange right now, seeing this first match play out once again in front of our eyes. All these classic moments, seeing the Shuri come out, a surefire, strong unit on Elsat's side, but unfortunately wasn't enough and led to our young man over here cleaning everything up. That's right, Zio swiping left and right and deleting all of the units one after another for Samu in that first game.
That Zio really clutched it out for the first game, and that Ray really sending everything home for the second. And Sama, oh my goodness, showing why playing turn 2 is by far the most dominant and consistent strategy, really showcasing what these units are capable of and what they can do.
As this went a little too distant with the shield and Armin, because you have Edward. You don't want that buff on the on that Edward. And surprisingly, continuing the story from last year, Edward being picked somewhat of times, but the win rate not that great actually in the tournament. As you can see, he can only handle so many debuffs at once.
Yeah, Edward, he is a tech pick and he is a counter in a lot of respects. Honestly, he mirrors Karina in a lot of ways, where once the conditions are set for Karina, she has such a high win rate. But even when the conditions are set for Ed, sometimes things can end up not going his way. And it was close at multiple moments here, and eventually that is what led to him falling at the hands of Dragon Bride Senya, as we can see right here. And with him, all the rest of the dominoes fell into place for Samu to take over and capitalize on those principal investments he started with.
Even with that many stuns coming out from Peyra, it was just not enough. Yes, Valky, you wanted to say something?
I was going to say, that's absolutely correct. And he's going to need to be able to hold on to that, because I do believe up next he will be facing off against KHM. He did very well holding his own versus the speed player, but when he's faced up against somebody, especially the originator of said playstyle, how is he going to be able to adapt his draft and his overall strategy for him to come out on top? That's what I'm curious in seeing.
We'll get to find out real soon, because the other side of the quarterfinals we do not get to see, but we will have the results ready. So right before we go into that semifinals, we do have a small break, but you guys know the second password was not out. Not pretty sure if it's going to be revealed during this break or the next break, but make sure to stay tuned so we don't miss anything, especially that second password. So we will take a short break. Once we come back, we will have the second finals of European server.
That the best intentions can lead to the worst outcomes. Back then, I didn't know. I'll never forget the moment despair darkened those hopeful eyes. But all I ever wanted was for everyone to live in peace. All I ever wanted was a world where everyone was happy. And just like I wanted, the war was over. Because there was no one left to fight in it. But this side of the story will never come to light, since there's no one who wants to hear the truth. I won't ask for forgiveness. You don't need my excuses. For the sake of peace, I'll be the villain I have to be. Time to end our twisted fate. Facts aren't what's important. What matters is what we perceive as the truth. When you look at me, who do you see? A butcher or mankind's savior? Will you be the one who sees through it all and understands me?
Trust in your queen! For this is a special invitation that will change your life! So I hope you're ready for... Miracle Maid Kingdom!
로드 가문의 이름을 이어받았으나 뜻대로 이루어지지는 않았다는 게 문제였지. 이걸 들 수 있는 자는 자네뿐일 거야. 날 위해 목숨을 바치려 했던 제뉴와 경에게 감사와 경의를 담아. 로드의 기사로서 손에 쥔 것에만 만족하던 내게 서로가 유일한 주인공이라고 말해줘. 우리의 만남은 필시 운명일 것이다. 그러나 필멸자와 불멸자가 감당할 아픔은 온전히 그의 몫이 되었으니. 이 녀석들이 진짜. 널 다시 만나는 날 들려줄 이야기가 부족할 일은 없겠어. 그렇지. 기대하고 있으라고.
Imagine how you would feel if your family was slaughtered. If the killer was revered as a hero of legend. Wouldn't it be horrifying? The screams of my enemies will be a requiem for the passing of my kin. Their blood will warm the corpse of my brother. I have no use for pride and honor as a warrior. All that remains is a void of emptiness and rage. Until the heart of my final enemy is run through, we won't stop. Will we, Ilian?
And welcome back everyone to the European qualifiers. It's time for the semi-finals to hit now. And we have some of the results from the other side. Oskizu versus Matayoh will be the other side of the bracket. Did not get to see that quarterfinals, but hopefully it was also a great match. That 10-minute game, a single game, 63 turns in 10 minutes, lots of RNG given and taken, but Samuhrado did end up taking it, and KHM versus Samu will be the first semifinals. What a matchup that we have, gentlemen.
Oh yeah, I'm actually so excited to see how people try to cook their drafts to try to overcome this king of this European playstyle. Really excited to see what goes on. And on the other side, super happy Matayoh won his set. I want to see what he's cooking as well. So there's, you know, we did say European has a very homogenous playstyle, but even then, there's so much room and so much possibilities for more cooking.
Oh, lots of 0-2-2-0s. This is, I think, the most amount of 2-0 we had in the quarters in all servers.
And almost an exact opposite of Japan's server. Really, people were fighting down tooth and nail, but honestly, these guys might suffer from having it just a bit too easy. You know, coming out into a 2-0 situation, I'm not saying I'm wishing them any bad luck, but you know, somebody's gotta, you know, humble you at some point. And it feels like fate might take a turn for the worse. We'll have to see here, especially in a match between two giants, KHM, the Dragon of the East, and Samu, the Tiger of the West, really going at each other in strong ways. These players both know each other well over, familiar with each other's play styles in and out, and we're going to get familiar with them right now as the player data is showing us exactly what kind of player KHM is. Right, Valky?
Absolutely. We've seen both of their drafts very consistently, but what we haven't seen is when both players are forced on their back foot, what do they opt for? Based on my research into their match history, KHM looks like he has a bit more variations to what he likes to do. It looks like he has a more fleshed out playstyle, but I am absolutely not counting out Sama. That man has proven himself time and time and time again. In every single match he's involved himself in, he's extremely intelligent, as we've already seen. So, ready to see how he capitalizes on this opportunity he's given.
Exactly. Here's Samu on the screen. Let's see if he can pull it up once again, because he's up against a very different type of opponent. KHM certainly showing Aola, Albedo, some different type of units. Even S10A, of course, it didn't make it, but still was being drafted at least. And Sam will only show twice. Games against elecsat, so those will be another uphill climb for Samuhrado. It seems like we do have the draft ready to go. First semifinals of European qualifiers, here we go.
This match is really going to decide a lot of things, and it's really two titans facing each other down. I wouldn't be surprised to see either of their names in the top 16 bracket for this tournament. But right now, right here, an EU champion has to be decided, and it might possibly be one of the two, with the ban coming out immediately towards the AOL.
What a snipe ban!
Both players playing that chicken game perfectly. KHM taking out the Politis as well as Sama, knocking out the Knockwall, both missing each other and also getting the cheeky AOL Janua out. Man, you love to see stuff like this. Watching good players play RTA is such a joy.
Immediate pick into Abyssal Yufin and the Armin. KHM ready to draft against Samu.
You look like a treat.
Elvira in the middle.
And that is exactly how you punish an early Abyssal Yufin. Elvira in the middle means she cannot gain any fighting spirit into the end game. You just can't jump off the walls with that trauma. And especially after Elvira's taken away, Lionheart Sirmia, that is one surefire way to blow up whenever you get counterattacked. I mean, we all know how much damage she packs from last year's E7WC. Whenever she gets hit by a counter or extra attack, I mean, it's far from over. She goes full fighting spirit, defense buff. She's the defense scaling bruiser with defense penetration. just able to melt even the tankiest of teams.
That's something I really want to even pay attention to right here. How much Samu is threading the needle right before our eyes, letting so in a lot of instances you can deal with Abyssal Euphine in two ways. You can either shut down her ability to counter whatsoever, decreasing the focus she can get, or alternatively, as he's gone through here, you can make sure she never gets any focus at all. But still, when she does her AoE counterattack, which she'll be doing regardless, what is it going to do? It's going to power up the ambitious Tywin with the debuff it puts out, giving him a chance to proc his passive, and it's going to get Lionheart Sirmia ready, roaring, and good to go. And we end out the draft with a Dragon's Bride Senya, and of course a Navy Captain Landy, all going into the Alvira as Shu stands at the side ready to carry the game if one of these principal DPSs aren't able to follow through and make it to the end as well.
Yeah, that's right.
KHM sure knows something I don't. Wow, picking the Navy Captain Landy into the Alvira, that is a one ballsy move if I've ever seen it. They'll ban out, so Sama respecting that last pick very much, but KHM saying, okay, yeah, go ahead, have the Shu, have more injury. I will be taking out ambitious Tywin. I will not let you defense break and stun my team.
With those choices, Tywin banned out, Landy gone, Alvira right in the middle, and one of the first time we'll see that Lionheart Sirmia in action in 2024. Let's get the action going. Game 1 between KHM and Samuhrado in semis.
It's always a good year for Suzumiya's favorite waifu, as she is making her appearance here on stage right here, right now. But let's turn to the rat here real quick. She has a very important job to do, and that's making sure that when this Laya gets active, she doesn't throw the kind of guitar that puts people out of commission immediately. And we're starting off immediately on that same note, with the Proof of Valor, with the proc, with a Lionheart Sirmia already ready to go from Jumpstart.
Leave me alone.
Wow, and activates the Lionheart, not a move I would expect. KHM is taking so many risks, but you can only assume since he's so good at playing defense, these are highly calculated risks. And now, Alvira kicks up the Senya into the air, and we are looking to just drop her. No defense break, but one stack of Venom should be enough. Provokes that counter from the Euphine.
Make this moment.
And Senya runs for the spear toss. Into Shu. Some damage, but a lot healed back.
I can do it too.
Oh man, and you know, we heard that earlier from the winner of the Japanese circuit. Shu is strong, especially versus these slow drafts, but when you have so many barriers. But wow, okay, Shu was not able to punch through Candace Lionheart though. Golden Rose means extra damage with the injury, but no, KHM is so tanky.
Counterattack again.
Another counter, getting her activated all over once again. It's far from over. It's not just far from over. It's only just begun. Shu gets another chance to attack out here, and without the barriers, this is going to be a clear knock with the injury damage going both into the Senya and the Laya. Now, we've highlighted it before. We've shut down some major applications out of the Abyssal Euphine, but what hasn't been shut down? Just the amount of damage she's doing. And I don't know how much more of it Smoo can take, especially if he starts getting hit off single target attacks. So let's skip that instead and vie for an S3 out of Death Dealer Ray to put people to sleep. Maybe
full
slow
team
down
asleep.
the tempo of this match with a full team wipe, 8 out of 8. Don't you love to see that on the debuff board, G-Clef?
That is a lot of red signs on top of all the heroes. The counter, of course, if you're sleeping, it doesn't work.
And the extra hit too, straight up just deletes the Crimson Armin. We knew the injury from the Ray is strong, but that is too strong. Sama there had the option to either throw it first and put the Crimson Armin to sleep, or wait for the Crimson Armin to put up the invincibility and then remove that with the strip. But here, he gambles on it and it pays off huge for him. Now Alvira And Lionheart once again ripping that S3. We're going entirely into KHM's team, and it's
Say
looking
goodbye
like...
to one, maybe even two. The damage clears, and it's not enough. But guess what? Lionheart Sirmia gets a follow-up, and that might just be enough to put down the Abyssal You Fiend. Absolutely demolishing Samu, rocking in his chair. The gamer action's just a little bit too much for him to handle. He feels the pride, takes a whiff out of the jersey, and he gives a determined glare. Yeah, chug up, King, because you just won against KHM one more time, and you're moving into the finals of this tournament. How about that?
Just one step away from going to the finals. That's right, Divine. That bottle was huge. Gotta be about 1.5 liter bottle or something. Love the posters on the back to it. But
Big brain
KHM,
needs big energy.
even without that defense break, this draft was just not enough against Samu.
And I mean, time and time again in this entire tournament, not just today, during Japan, during Global, we've seen so many players have success with the Abyssal You Fiend off of second pick, especially with a few units pre-banned already. But Sama cleverly locks in the Elvira third to counter, cannot be banned away, and then takes the Lionheart Sirmia to absolutely run over this defensive behemoth, busting down the castle walls and taking himself that 1-0 lead in this set.
That's right, Valky. What a style of drafting that Samu is showing all the way in the semis today. Okay, KHM, what else does he need? What does he need to ban out? Does that Elvira, is it worth the pre-ban?
He's got to... I mean, he's got to think to himself whether or not he wants to pre-ban it, and my inclination is no. He'd rather adapt his strategy, and right now, it might be what he's looking for. Instead of doing that, take first pick since you've lost that first match, and take for yourself that Death Dealer raid that was such a problem for you in Game 1. Let's see if that's what he goes for.
You're right, Ray's banned out.
No! He pre-bans that, so he wants to stick to that Laya first pick strategy.
And Yuvin, taken this time by Samu instead, along with that Senya, ML Senya.
Wow, I'm actually really curious to see how KHM responds to that. You know, does he go for exactly what Samu just did? We take the Elvira on 3, or does he go for maybe more an Aiden-oriented strategy? That's something we've definitely seen people go for to varying degrees of success tonight.
Or KHM, there were some options, and safe one seemed to be that Urban Shadow shoe. But is he willing to play that style? I believe we haven't really seen that shoe come down from KHM much. Instead, Albedo and a Tywin.
Once again, we're grabbing up the Albedo and a Tywin. Very much proven units in terms of their value, especially versus Abyssal You Fiend, who is going to hit back in an AoE with the attack down. That will make the A Tywin a little bit angry, and an angry Tywin is not someone you want to trifle with.
Less angry, more enraged at the prospect that lesser mortals would even dare ascend to his claim for the throne. That's right, ambitious Tywin, a man full of pride, not unlike a lot of our competitors here, putting it all on the line, thinking and engaging with the strategies, and you gotta think just a little bit harder when it comes to who deserves that ban protection slot and who's going to be going alongside with them. It's a conundrum to be sure, but Samu's letting every second waste down as he thinks about it and finally locks it in with the shoe, and joining her will be LRK of all people.
Last Rider Cow in the house.
That is a blast from the past. And, you know, Ambitious Tywin, as we highlighted, has so many deadly debuffs. But, hey, when you have an immunity that, so far, it doesn't look like KHM has a reliable way to be able to dispel, that immunity will keep you safe from the stuns and from those pesky defense breaks.
Who can take those spikes? Siegfried, they do hurt. And Krau certainly can provide some shields.
Well, I think it's interesting to see where the Siegfried is actually pushed into a point of the draft where Death Dealer Ray is unavailable and he picks the shoe for himself. So a lot of these classic Venom options that lower the efficacy of his S3 are out. but nothing can stop the captain as she comes out for left side here with KHM and finally
Don't worry,
eyes a
I'm here.
mysterious lady, a savior of Thanalan, I might add, Savior Auden. Coming out here is a little bit of a surprise, but maybe not so much. She loves to take out dark units, loves to expose and put them down immediately. With how powerful that S3 is, it's almost like a little Queen Charlotte execution all on its own.
Sama now kind of stuck in this matchup, I would say. Savior Auden will be able to get so much value. Lone Crescent Bellona comes as a counter to Navy Captain Landy, but with that one, I definitely think the Savior Auden is out of here.
That seems to be the one easy ban choice. But Samuel thinking extra seconds before he makes that selection.
Samu coming out pretty quickly, and then the ban comes out eventually for the Dragon's Bride towards the other side, as we predicted, and the match seems to be underway in just a short moment here. Either Samu comes out of this a winner, or we come out of this excited and ready for the 1-1 situation between these giants to conclude themselves. It either begins or ends here, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah, that's right, especially for KHM.
Either way.
Does not have an extra life. Samu does have an extra life in this best of 3. And let the gates close and open for the match. Game number 2 is ready to go.
I swear I'll pull her today. We're into the match right now with the barriers, of course, getting in the way a little bit for the job that Urban Shadow Shu wants to do. But no matter, a little bit of damage comes out, a lowering of the banners of the barriers for sure, as Laya gets out her guitar and gets ready to play.
30k Laya, 32k Albedo. Very, very tanky in front.
And you know, when these units are tanky, we know exactly what is going on. They're going to be hitting so hard since so many of them are HP scaling units. We're going first right into the last rider crowd. Luckily, no defense break to be seen, but this ambitious Tywin might say no, no, no.
Let's see Flash.
That S3.
I don't really enjoy this.
Ooh, defense breaks
Well aware of what you're planning.
Was that enough?
Yeah,
But still got the
My
counters.
tea is getting cold.
Not too many stuns here going on for KHM. That might not be what he wants to see, but does land the defense break, and that might give him what he wants to run through this matchup. Lone Crescent Bellona pushes herself up on this combat readiness bar, and she is going to start all-inning that Navy Captain Landy. We do not want her to go.
She
we
survives.
do not want her to pop off. And there, Albedo counterattacks, but will give 4 stacks over to the Bellona. Bellona bats back again. That is so much damage in one single rotation.
So many crits.
I can do it
So many
too.
crits
And with
so
the
many
UP?
opportunities, especially if she might be finished off here. No, surviving by just the slimmest of margins. But if there's somebody who's always
Here
ready
comes
to
the mobile
finish
weapon.
the job, it's Last Rider Crow.
And that's
Ooh,
Landy
Navy
gone.
Captain Landy right out.
Right here.
A follow-up attack on the vulnerable Shu, almost gone in an instant thanks to the 3F proc on top. And just like that, she's out of the game, leaving this to be a game for 2 lovely leading ladies out there on Samu's side's back. And it's going to be those bars you have to keep in
And the
mind.
counter!
As they're
Alvarez-
activating, they're getting up, and of course that's not enough. There's another one,
Samu
a little bit
feeling
of a
the
dance, a little bit of a
chills!
jig from Samu. Yes, that's right, ladies and gentlemen. And as happy as he might be, there's misery, there's trauma on the battlefield, and it could end the fight right here and right now. Pushing
frenzied
back the
strike.
enemy
Oh,
team.
KHM
That's it
taps
for
out. That's
KHM. He
GG.
knows he has it.
Samu.
Wow.
Chills, calm down, chills, calm down, calm down.
Ice in his veins. You could tell he was locked all the way in, making perfect decisions with that Lone Crescent Bellona, taking out the Landy first, and afterwards, even with a low HP ambitious Tywin, he goes right into the Laya. Eyes on the prize. He knows who the threats are. He knows where the win conditions are, and he does not miss a single beat. And that decision making is exactly how you can take down the king of defensive drafts, the Lord of Europe. Now Sama is the one sitting in that spot. Holy moly, I cannot believe what we just saw.
One down, one more to go. Samu up first in the finals. Oh man, Samu yet to lose a game. Yes, Divine?
Yeah, I was going to say, this first match, I was thinking about it while we were going through, but I didn't have a chance to say it. Now, there was a crap ton, excuse my language, ladies and gentlemen, I know. There was a metric ton of value coming out towards the Guardian Ice Crystal on the Death Dealer Ray here, keeping key components of the team alive, multiple instances. That Shu dips into the lower centers of her health here and then comes back up. It's such a valuable artifact, and it's no reason or wonder why we keep seeing it played again and again in this tournament.
And I have to breathe out right here because when you have these high-level plays building up defensive utilities, but suddenly when you get that, oh look at that, Elbrus, and suddenly also extra attack bat back from the Lone Crescent Bellona, you just don't expect to have your units be bursted down this hard. And Sama absolutely figuring out the matchup, drafting well, good decisions, and GG's going over to him. I'm absolutely impressed by his play.
So drafting exactly targeting that Landy. Make sure you have some extra damage to get her down. And by the time that Elbrus popped up, a little too late from KHM.
Just wasn't enough at that position, and as you can see, these bars are going up one by one by one, and they're a deadly combination. Once again, you get to see Samu feeling himself up there. Might have been KHM was the one who needed the Alvira to keep locked down on all these terrorizing threats, because at the end of the day, Samu was able to see the unconventional options for AoE that were coming out. The Bicorn, of course, as well as the Ambitious Tywin, only getting out one of those big, massive AoEs, but they were more than enough to set up the Bellona into a perfect position to pluck victory out of the hands, and from the jaws of defeat comes a winner in Samu, as he predicted.
What a turn of events. I mean, KHM had solid, tanky options in the front, but still goes through directly into Landy and Samu. His drafting style compared to last year seems a lot more diverse, selecting the perfect right answer. That's why he hasn't dropped a single game yet, but in the finals, I'm pretty sure the opponent will be giving him lots of challenges. Now, let's move down to the bottom side of the bracket. Oskizu versus Matayoh. This is another huge match. Huge match coming up in the Europe qualifiers. Thaki, want to say something about your favorite?
Oh man, you know me, I love a dark horse story because the dark horses of every bracket are always the best cooks, and I have an appetite for a delicious dish. Matayoh always pulls up with something interesting, so I'm extremely interested in seeing whether or not he's one of these methodical players like we saw with Samu, or if he might pull out a round 2 of that Sanada Kuong story, where he just pulls out a draft that's going to make us all pop off.
Interesting. We're yet to see, because we haven't seen a game from the bottom side of the bracket. I wonder how the drafting went between the blue players. Of course, Gruvia losing him in the quarterfinals. That was a big news. Watch him also going down 0-2. And these two stand tall in the semifinals, but only one will be going up against Samuhrado in the finals. Let's take a look at what they picked the most in the prelims and what they like to have in the Vanguard and also the pre-bans. And first, let's take a look at Oskizu. Most picked Albedo. Lots of Albedo favorites in the Europe. And most picked, who is that in the middle in the red? I can't believe it.
I don't think I've ever seen that unit before.
Did the graphic?
Oh boy.
Do we have a wrong graphic? I don't think so.
I think that's our protagonist, guys. That's our protagonist of the entire game.
As protagonist has been out of the episode story a little bit.
What are you talking about? That's not Ran. I don't see Ran right there. What's going on?
Not Aiden either.
We switch over here to Mata with his data on set. Another big fan of the Sharoon, and as you can see, applying plenty of injury with injury damage, not only with her, but with the added help of the ML Shu as well. And of course, Who does well when you've got all these dangerous injury units on your side? Laya, stalling out the game, protecting the team, and bringing them victory in the latter half of the match. This might be somebody who's excitedly ready to cook us some interesting drafts that bring us to some unforgettable conclusions.
That's right, Divine. And we're ready to kick into the draft. Second semifinals of the European qualifiers. Oskizu on the left, Matayoh on the right. Some different types of heroes that we haven't seen so much. I'm very excited for the pre-bans.
Both players taking their time to think about these pre-bans, and from what they pre-ban, you can almost always determine their strategy and their approach to the game. For example, we saw Matayoh go for these injury units, and as such, you know he prefers a longer match. So taking out the Janua right away. But wow, instead, you know, we were seeing some of these pre-bans kind of flipped around. Oskizu taking out the Janua, as well as the Dragon King Sharoon. Matayoh, of course, locking in the Laya first pick. But when Dragon King Sharoon is gone, Death Dealer Ray is coming out full force. There is no one to stop him.
Along with the Abyssal Yufine pickup from Oskizu. Waiting for the response from Matayoh.
Is it my
Green
turn?
Tulane, lots of green units. 2 for 2.
Wow, and he's going for it too.
Weak for the protection.
I'll show you.
Hey, Ross has made an appearance for the first time.
And he's band protected as well.
What a waste of time.
Leafy,
Wow,
also first appearance.
You know, we were just talking about this. Matayoh is really opting for these green units, and Oskizu, without missing a beat, slams 2 fire units. And just like that, Lethe, a blue unit, gets locked in for Matayoh. And now, I wonder how he wants to close out this draft of his.
LQC being hovered.
I'll give you a taste
Lion
of
Hermia.
defeat.
Okay, that's definitely interesting. Goes for the Lionheart Sirmia. We all know Abyssal Yufine comes built in with that 30% counterattack chance, so that is never a bad pick. But are you going to be able to do enough with 2 knights in the game, especially?
Instantly have to be banned.
Yeah, instantly banned. Those were some of the quickest bans I think we've seen in the tournament thus far.
I think both players know their exact matchup and they understand their win conditions, the exact steps, the exact turns they need to win. Let's just see if it lines up to their visions. Lethe removed as well, so none of that true damage into extinction for Matayoh. This Lionheart Sirmia and the Selene combination will need to come up huge for today.
Exactly, let's see. After the post bans, let's get into game number 1 of semifinals. Match number 2, starting with Laya from Matayoh on the right.
Yeah, Laya usually built as a fast support. Being so far above the combat readiness bar compared to the Mediator Cohort tells me that is a Bruiser Mediator, pushing him up as well. Now also provoking the Lilius, provokes the Selene, goes into the Yufine, and now
the barrier already activated, protecting the unit in the back, as well as another soul burn from the Selene here. We've seen this damage. Is it enough to put him in the grave? No, Guardian Ice Crystals bring him from just a quarter to barely a third HP over on the Death Dealer Ray.
We know this is a Bruiser Mediator. He's thinking about his turn. Do you go for the S2 snap? Oh no, and instead of going on the Ray, we strip that big barrier, the Rune of Solitude, away from the Abyssal Yufine, and now she's sort of stuck in a spot. Ray now, when you're this behind in terms of HP, you have to go. We're dropping the S3, putting every unit on notice with the injury, and now Sleep is there. You need your Mediator to take another turn, and you need him to go fast to cleanse off this injury before that damage and sets in for the Venom.
For that,
We won't be needing to wake anybody up because they're getting a rude awakening right there.
Purifying flame.
Going for the defense up first.
Running that damage, and now Oskizu stabilizes, puts up his defense buff. Now he's in the stable position. Abyssal Yufine,
He's AoEs!
Take you all down.
Oh man, Matayoh looks like he just got melted.
It's a perfect application of the left side draft. The the buff for the Pestilence coming out from the Death Dealer Ray, and then AoE options across the board utterly decimate Matayoh's team in terms of health and factoring damage.
Man. Yeah, with the buff from DDR, it's like having
Not a hero
cascades.
you see every often, but wow, pulls the dual attack, takes out the Lionheart Sermia. She does not get a chance to shine, and now Matayoh is just left standing with the Lion, but
That's it!
No more.
Promising.
GG goes
with-
over to Oskizu for game 1.
That's insane. Wow. A Ross,
The intensity.
100% win rate.
I mean, here's the real thing that you have to think about, right? Adventure Ross is not a character you first think to pick as your main support. But if you're going to stick so closely to playing this Abyssal Yuffie, what does she need? Well, most of her damage comes from her defense scaling, which scales very well with Adventurous Ross' defense buff. And on top of that, whenever she attacks, she gains Fighting Spirit. That's going to let her pop off really late into the game. And nobody is better than letting your allies dual attack than Ross being able to pull the highest attack stat ally, which most of the times will still be your Abyssal Yuffie. Excellent draft from Oskizu. Matayoh needs to be able to find a way to overcome that synergy if he wants to win, because I don't think he was ready for that the first match.
Yes, Falky, I think Matayoh has to break that equation, and I think Ray was the key point. Having that many Venoms from all the AoE damage, it was kind of insane. I think we all know that Death Dealer Ray has to go.
That Dealer Ray is looking in a position of vulnerability, but also at the same time, you've got to enjoy how much the Ross fit perfectly into that match, protecting his team with the rune in the first place, and then getting out that defense buff and a perfect application of Venom in the second half, and then finally at the end, actually getting out that dual attack when it hurt him the least, when it was finally fell the Lionheart Sermia. Indeed, the Ray Band does come through, as well as for a Blood Moon haste, and the game gets exciting pretty quickly with our first appearance of Biblis already in response to the Navy Captain Landy. That's what I like to see.
The counter, the anti-counter unit.
I love counters. I don't know about you boys, and especially with so many powerhouse units taken out as well, with all of these additional pre-bans, being able to reach deep into your bag is how you take away these series. Being down one, sure, that's tough, but having a big bag means you can come back no matter what. You need to be able to win that third game, and that's what really matters. Oskizu thinking about how he can reply to this, and oh boy, that is going to be tough. Unbound Knight
Another
Arrow
White Knight
come through. And we saw how much damage he could mitigate yesterday, and there it is.
We've seen the combo.
The Dawnbringer on the left side, all these light units paving a perfect way towards possible victory in a 2-0 format. Matayoh is going to have to find a nice answer, not only to counteract, but to surprise his enemy with some picks here that'll put him in a position for victory. Albedo is coming out and looking gorgeous as always, but does this Ferocious Flower have enough to put down the rest of the team? We'll see in a couple moments, I surmise.
One thing I really like to highlight is Oskizu laying down these landmines for his opponents from the get-go. He pre-banned Dragon King Sharoon out of the entire set. Ooh, Bihu locked in. That's a bit scary, but still, Dragon King Sharoon not in the game. Game 1, he dominated with the Death Dealer Ray, and Game 2, he's looking to make some plays with this stun off of Unbound Knight Arrowwall, and wow, I'm just so impressed with how he manages to always thread the needle and just come up with these landmines that his opponents, it's so planted so far down the road, his opponents might not even be able to see them coming.
It feels amazing.
Locking it down with the Gala Lilius to finish off for Oskizu. Oh man, so interesting. One of the most interesting drafts so far. Specimen says on the left, Biblis, Fire, Robbie, Albedo, and Bihu. There's so much damage potential too.
much damage potential, and so much of it is ramping up towards that final crescendo, right? You've got the Laya, you've got the Ravi, and you've no longer got the Laya, and you've no longer got the Midnight Gala Lilius. Pure light on left side, and on the right side, a consortium of all kinds of DPS,
RGB.
but no MLs in sight. Yeah,
Exactly.
this is going to be easier on most people's wallets, you know, ignoring the limiteds and collabs aside, and possibly might show just how much Matayoh is a cook who doesn't have to rely on the standard fanfare that is currently in the meta format.
Oskizu up
While he might
1-0.
not have to do that, I do think Oskizu won that ban though, because while he is playing a very special type of draft, I do think Oskizu won that post ban with the Conqueror Lilius still staying in, and now she can not only drop 3 attack downs, but also you have your options of provoking that Bihu or the Biblis. You can make the play. Do you go for the Landy counter? Do you go for the Gala Lilius counter? Bihu is very fast. Oh no! He pushes back and controls that Biblis instead. So now Bihu is free to reign. Oh man, we haven't seen this yet.
First appearance of Bihu on the field. He was picked a couple of times, but was always post-banned.
This is why a lot of units, especially in the current meta, are relying on buffs in one way, shape, or another, and Bihu absolutely stripping and putting up unbuffable, something terrible to have to deal with, especially if your team doesn't have a cleanser. Albedo comes in to cleanse the filth out of this world by putting down the defense break on top of the Navy Captain Landy, and that's a ticking time bomb towards a possible disaster unless left side can make a play before it does come down in that fashion.
Don't ever
Dangerous,
ignore the
because there's
power
also that Fire Ravi.
with something to
Trying
protect.
to put down
Talked about
the
him
lock
making
and
that
stun.
play with Unbound Knight Arrow well, and now, oh, that is so rough. He misses the stun on the Albedo. The Specimen says now, kind of
Here's the claw.
in an awkward position.
Was that only one stun?
Here.
It's only one stun. That's not what Oskizu wanted to see at all, ladies and gentlemen. As we get the drop from the Bihu, say goodbye the Landy.
Oh man, the Landy goes down, yes, but now that Biblis is left hanging, she has nobody to farm counterattacks off of, and if the turns go right, I mean, Oskizu is still very much in this game.
Oh, an immediate kill on the Bihu, pushing up the Specimen says, and now you can hear the strings playing. The horror music is at play. He's grabbing Ravi, and just like that, she's gone.
Space Gaming!
Absolutely.
I should really pull the weeds.
Is that about it? Matayoh doesn't really have that much damage.
Matayoh doesn't have that much damage, but he's got the hope. There's something that can be cobbled together. Old Gardening Shears, Albedo's damage, maybe a couple procs, and something can be salvaged from this game. But as I've always said, Spez is a horror movie villain protagonist. He comes out of nowhere. He grabs your units one by one, and soon afterwards, they're done right before your eyes. And he has to survive that horror if he wants to see daybreak come out at the end of this road.
I made it in the
Horror
nick of
is
time.
absolutely right. So many in our audience stunned as the House Specimen says managed to deal 70,000 damage.
Another stun, that's no good!
Yeah, the reason why we're freaking out about these stuns is every time a unit is stunned, he is doing true damage. It penetrates all of these characters' defenses. And thankfully, Albedo passes her turn, letting that stun wear off. Specimen says not being able to showcase that horror movie villain damage.
Another
And
trial to
oh boy,
overcome.
Matayoh hanging on to his tournament life. He wants to win this. His drafting was
Somehow.
there, but oh man,
But it doesn't miss.
Another two hits. The counterattack from Aegis unfolds, but unfortunately, now Biblis is the one in the unsure position. As I said before, it's like watching the dominoes fall piece by piece. The plan is coming and it unfurling in action behind us. And unfortunately, ladies and gentlemen, he seems to have found
There's a light storm.
Wow, even without the attack, but 59,000 damage. GG comes out from Matayoh. Oskizu takes the series 2-0. Stone cold, not even a change in his facial expression. What a monster of a drafter.
I know, he barely blinks after that win. Even after the Landy, he's got the back anchor. That's Specimen Says Gaming, ladies and gentlemen. We've learned it a little bit yesterday, but you know what? I think it's time to get some more stuns on the field and maybe let this guy through into the field.
Now we've got the replays of the matches here right now. Once again, ladies and gentlemen, we've all seen the standard Celine fare at this point, familiar with her putting enemies into vulnerable positions, but then it was time for an even more familiar face, the Death Dealer Ray, simply putting out control and following up with his team. Plenty of damage was coming out from all sides, with this AoE coming out, applying Venom, with this AoE coming out from Ross, applying even more Venom, healing and defense buffs, and of course, it wouldn't be an AoE match without the Queen herself finally detonating and putting that fair off to sleep permanently. The S2 follow-up from Ross comes to activate. It's far from over. No, it's over right now, as a simple cleave comes out from the Ross to finish off the game, saying, I'm the protagonist, I'm the person you see when you log in, I'm the face you'll remember tonight in horror.
That's right.
Oskizu is able to pull out such dominant drafts, and that's just thanks to his power of, you notice when he picks these units together, he picks the Abyssal Youthing with the Adventurer Ross, insane synergy, and he also goes for the Unbound Knight Arrow with the Specimen Says, and together these units are just able to overcome so many of these power picks, so much damage, all because of their synergy, and that's the thing he's so good at. And oh my goodness, if he takes this into the next set, he might just be able to unseat Sama and become the representative of the Europe server going into the main stages for E7WC 2024. I am so excited to see this next matchup. How do we feel, boys? Who is the strongest Stone Cold Killer?
Oh, yet to find out. Samuhrado ready in the final spot. Oskizu just got a seat in the final. That ticket is getting ready to go, and maybe into the main stage. But Oskizu, that especially the first draft, very interesting with A-Ra. Certainly 100% win rate so far. Will he pull that up once again, or is it going to be S? Specimen Says, so he's got a lot of options where you can literally just twist, turn left and right. And I think Samu, watching the games right now, must be thinking, what's he got in the finals? Wow. And of course, next matchup, as we had just said, should be popping any second. If not, if not, it's okay. Yeah, there we go. Europe finals. Yes, nothing, no surprise. We already had 2 fast words, guys. That's right. That's exactly what's coming up next. We will take a short one. Guys, don't go anywhere, because the final match to decide the winner of the qualifiers, to have them in the main match, coming up next.
Stand
that the best intentions can lead to the worst outcomes? Back then, I didn't know. I'll never forget the moment despair darkened those hopeful eyes. But all I ever wanted was for everyone to live in peace. All I ever wanted was a world where everyone was happy. And just like I wanted, the war was over. Because there was no one left to fight in it. But this side of the story will never come to light, since there's no one who wants to hear the truth. I won't ask for forgiveness. You don't need my excuses. For the sake of peace, I'll be the villain I have to be. Time to end our twisted fate. Facts aren't what's important. What matters is what we perceive as the truth. When you look at me, who do you see? A butcher or mankind's savior? Will you be the one who sees through it all and understands me?
Trust in your queen! For this is a special invitation that will change your life! So I hope you're ready for... Miracle Maid Kingdom!
로드 가문의 이름을 이어받았으나 뜻대로 이루어지지는 않았다는 게 문제였지. 이걸 들 수 있는 자는 자네뿐일 거야. 날 위해 목숨을 바치려 했던 제뉴와 경에게 감사와 경의를 담아. 로드의 기사로서 손에 쥔 것에만 만족하던 내게 서로가 유일한 주인공이라고 말해줘. 우리의 만남은 필시 운명일 것이다. 그러나 필멸자와 불멸자가 감당할 아픔은 온전히 그의 몫이 되었으니. 이 녀석들이 진짜. 널 다시 만나는 날 들려줄 이야기가 부족할 일은 없겠어. 그렇지. 기대하고 있으라고.
Imagine how you would feel if your family was slaughtered. If the killer was revered as a hero of legend. Wouldn't it be horrifying? The screams of my enemies will be a requiem for the passing of my kin. Their blood will warm the corpse of my brother. I have no use for pride and honor as a warrior. All that remains is a void of emptiness and rage. Until the heart of my final enemy is run through, we won't stop. Will we, Ilian?
And welcome back everyone to the finals of Europe qualifiers. Day number 2 here, or technically day number 3 after Japan. We have 2 players left, down from 8 players now. Samuhrado versus Oskizu. Surprising fact that both players actually lost against Gongero last year in the 2023 E7WC. So without Gongero, they're clashing against each other, but only one can survive at the end of the day. Who will it be, Samuhrado or Oskizu? Again, I have to put you guys on the spot. Who is it going to be, Vaki Divine? Let's go with Vaki first again.
Oh man, that is a tough call.
Very tough.
I think Oskizu puts the tank and tank down, and whenever he chooses a mitigator, it always has some of the best synergies in the entire game to match that tank. But Sama, the Brazilian beast himself, it really looks like he's mastered some of the mechanics of the game. He plays around fighting spirit so well, and I think he takes that to the next level. So I'm gonna go with my man Sama.
Samu won both. Divine, what's your take?
I just gotta say, Oskizu obviously benefiting from the benefits last time of putting on the protagonist Ross's own plot armor on himself to guide him towards making the best decisions, towards getting an ultimate victory. But all jokes aside, there's something to be said about the way people play Epic 7, especially at this high level in these tournaments. You have the standard fare drafters that are sticking with pristine, well-defined and cut units that do their job perfectly, and then there are the people that are going for out-of-the-box options that throw everyone else for a loop. And I think Oskizu really knows how to master both, hitting with the tried-true units in the first half of his draft and then mixing it up so well in the second half. I think Samu can run into some problems there, and so I give it over to Oskizu.
Oskizu won, Samu won. Certainly. Can Samu handle the drafting style of Oskizu? A lot of chat saying loving this different style and how fun it is to watch these different heroes, especially that A-Ross combination with DDR and Yuvin was incredibly strong. I think a lot of people caught attention to that type of draft that we have really never seen along with that A-Ross. We'll see, Samuhrado or Oskizu. Only one moves up to the main stage, only one slot from you. And here we go. The finals. Samu on the left, Oskizu on the right. Game 1. Let's wait for the pre-bench.
One of these people has to stand over the bodies of every single other person in their server to represent the rest of them in the finals of the tournament, and that will be decided right here, right now. And what's the first step to all that? What are the pre-demands? Show it to me.
Specimen says!
Specimen says!
Can't believe it!
Oh. None of the fun. No fun for you. No fun allowed.
Do my best.
That is a huge amount of respect given over to Oskizu and his ability to generate these insane combos. You can cut off his tail and suddenly does he spawn more. We know these guys are good at playing the meta. He goes for the classic I want to end legend, but it is when these guys have to pivot, when these guys have to go off the script is when they make their mark. And oh my goodness, are they sticking to it or are they going to be cooking a little bit? We've seen so much of that tonight. I've been eating good. We are at the finals of the EU bracket, and I really, oh, there it is. Once again, Sama going for the Elvira on the third pick. Completely protected. Oskizu knows he's not going to be able to play with any fighting spirit for the rest of this match.
We've seen that once against KHM, and Elvira did her job because she's in that ban protection, cannot be post-banned by Oskizu. Now has to think twice before he picks anything that could work against her.
Should give up.
Now, Elvira is a little bit of a unique unit, Valk, here, in that she doesn't typically rely on such a high DPS, but instead ER to make sure she's constantly protected under her immortality buff. How exactly do you go about disabling or dealing with Elvira in particular once you're in a draft format like this, Valk?
Oh boy, that is a tough one. Well, there are two options when you know you cannot debuff something with upwards of 300 and even 330 effect resistance. You are either going to need to play fast, drop a whole lot of damage, and push your team mayhaps, or in Oskizu's case, just completely rely on the sheer value of your attacks, knowing you can't ramp anything. And Sama does not care. He picks up Solitaria of the Snow as well. The Snow Princess will be able to hold all focus away from the Shu. That is a dirty, dirty play. Oh my goodness. No fighting spirit, also no focus for Oskizu. He has to be feeling a little bit weird about this.
Super control.
It's a terrible spot to be in. No focus, no focus bars, none of the fighting spirit, maidenless, completely distraught, having none of the resources that a lot of these units in the fight rely upon. But a Meteor Quirk standing at the gate, perhaps being able to lead his team towards victory. Speaking of leaders, Navy Captain Landy comes out at the end for Samu, an always reliable option to end the draft around. Does he have an option that answers that and the rest of the draft? We see him picking up and looking towards Edward Elric of all people.
Elric against those Solitaria debuffs, and he's locked in, Edward, indeed. An insta-post ban from Oskizu.
I think he knows what he wants to remove. You have to be taking away the Solitaria from Sama. You are already playing without fighting spirit. You can't lose your focus. Once you lose that, your units are just going to be flopping around left and right, not being able to hit hard at all.
And the choice. Both
Oh
fit
wow,
picks.
he's going to ban the Navy Captain Landy instead. So instead, going for no fighting spirit, no focus, he says, I do not need any special mechanics. Sama, I know you're good with those. You can take it, but I will still beat you down. Okay, very interested in seeing how that match breaks down. I don't think I've ever seen a match like this in all my time playing RTA.
This might be a little bit of a longer one, ladies and gentlemen. Tuck in, because game one of the finals of EU is in here. Solitaria starting things from Samu.
Solitaria racing out immediately and is in a position. She can S1, she can S3, but whatever she does, she'll be attempting to dot the battlefield with, say it with me, ladies and gentlemen, a deluge of devastating debuffs, and getting a hit in on the Bastion of Hope on the ER protected rat in the back there is the very first step of the plan. The more hits she takes and the longer this game gets, the more she'll be vulnerable to being trolled.
Counter. Not doing much yet from Oskizu.
Pops out a little bit of a cheeky damage. So when your team needs these resources to work, and you're not getting them, you have to rely on two things. You have to rely on your Abyssal Euthine just being able to hit hard on her own, and you need to just be taking HP after HP away from Sama. So tempoing up forward, ambitious Tywin though, going for the S3.
2 stuns, 3D breaks.
3 defense breaks. That's pretty big. So now Sama has a small window before the Meteor Quirk comes back and cleanses those off. Does Sama use that and just run the damage against Oskizu, being able to put the hurt down?
Speaking of hurt, more hurt is going to be going down onto the ML Shu in the back there. Full resist, so these kinds of options is going to be his only hope in the interim. Meanwhile, the protector of Great Swords, Crimson Armin, is taking the battlefield here, and it's never too early for an S3 as she decides it's a great way to ignore those defense breaks by ignoring damage altogether now.
Oskizu,
the immunity as well coming in for Oskizu, going to be able to protect against the Solitaria lest she strips them with her extra attack. And now Laya getting to take her turn. Even without her focus, Urban Shadow Shu has already put a significant and noticeable dent in the Laya's HP pool. Ambitious Tywin as well. So now these units, HP scaling units, will not be hitting back as hard.
Solitaria. Samu waiting for that decision. Chipping away Shu. Slowly. But about half HP gone now.
There's still filth to purge. You who deviated from the natural order.
And there it is, that Mediator Caloric turn. Once again, removing the defense breaks, reapplying the immunity. Solitaria has so much work she needs to go through in order to get those debuffs back, but the shoe is already half HP. Takes another stack of Bastion of Hope off of her. Extra damage does come through, but only a few hundred. That is the power of Crimson Armament, able to hold back so much damage, and now...
A dual attack from the shoe. Wanting to get back into the action. Speaking on that aspect of action, once again, we've got the ambitious Tywin swinging out a cavalrycade of the S1s a couple of turns away, and he could get another S3 up, but he'd have to survive for that long. And one of the stalwart defenders of his team might be going down long before that could happen. Reducing the cooldown for the team, a perfect synergy on display between the Laya and the Elvira, making sure she's topped off and ready to engage with another S3 should she fall, because she needs to make sure nobody on the enemy team gets any fighting spirit of any sort.
That's right, Divine. There is that stun.
Nothing in this world is
But still, the shoe now only with AK HP. Putting some extra injuries.
Still filth to purge.
Yep, that extra damage will put the hurt on you. You have no fighting spirit, no focus.
Here?
Oh, it absolutely does. Oh, doesn't. I was wrong. The Meteor Caloric, despite being a bruiser, can't really run that amount of damage through an ambitious Tywin mitigation. But he is only standing with a sliver of HP left. He needs to go now.
Spirit of Rock
comes.
Not enough to take out
it's
Shu.
not good enough!
But here's a Tywin.
Hey, Tywin with the follow-up, he'll put the rat down for good, but we gotta keep in mind what we lost there. When Laya is able to kill with her guitar, she does get an additional turn follow-up. And even if the turn doesn't do much, that is also technically a turn decrease for her, getting her back into the action so much quicker. And he's going to need more damage like that very much soon, especially if this counter kills a Tywin. Yes, it does.
And even without her fighting spirit, Abyssal Euphine is still a bruiser nonetheless. She's going to be able to hit back, and every time you attack that Elbrus Ritual Sword, it will be peeking in the corner like a creeper. If you drop your guard, she will still clap.
Elvira's still there.
So you want to die.
But not really providing much damage. Just a couple of hundreds. Some beguiles, that's gonna help.
Lands the provoke, but also lands herself into some hot water with another round of counterattacks coming on, and people hanging on for dear life. Exposed is the Elvira, exposed is the Laya, and unfortunately, it might not be Samu's game at all. It's looking like a tight finish, and I don't know if he has enough in the tank to bring it all the way to victory. He's going to soul burn here for an extra turn, pushing back a key target, and that target is going to be the Meteor Caloric.
You need to do whatever you can, pushing back the Meteor Caloric. I'm sure he's trying to stun the Abyssal.
The counterattack, the last thing he wanted to see. It's leaving the Solitaria all by her lonesome.
Got some extra stun, beguile damage, but with only Solitaria, Samu might not have enough anymore. Oskizu have almost done it for game one.
I've seen Solitaria rob one too many games in my lifetime, but that will not be a robbery. GG comes out from Sama. Oskizu taking that first match, and once again, definitely stone cold here, not even reacting to that win, barely blinking.
That's not even a camera. He just has it on loop, right? He just has it on loop. There's just got to be a GIF.
It's live.
Playing in front. It's live.
It's 100% live. We do player check before we go into match every single time. It's a procedure. Yes.
I'm just saying, he is he's stonewalled in all the aspects, but maybe that steely stare is the key to his victory. Keeping calm under all kinds of fire, ice in his veins, letting nothing get to him, and keeping a perfect mental capacity for all decisions going forward.
Oskizu Now just one away from grabbing at least that 2.5 guaranteed for top 8 into the main matches. And also defeating one of the big names in Europe, Samu. But of course Samu won't be going down easy. Still has one more chance. That's game number 2. Let's wait for the pre-bans. Says, already banned out, but Oskizu still alive.
If Samu wants to come back from this one, he's going to need to identify the linchpin holding up Oskizu's draft schemes. His most consistent strategies, being able to just take that completely apart. The players have chosen Urban Shadow Shoe removed from Oskizu's roster, and Blood Moon Haze goes out for Sama. Now, Laya being first picked once again for Sama.
And the response comes out almost immediately with a Conqueror Lilius, followed up by Navy Captain Landy. And where the sun sets, the moon rises, ladies and gentlemen. The two opposites, Navy Captain Landy and Abyssal Euphine, making their display onto the field once more, with Crimson Armin backing up Samu this time.
And Dragon Senya
and
right
he
in the middle.
wants to be a legend. That is a tried and true combination. Dragon Bright Senya does get locked in, protecting mayhaps the Navy Captain Landy, mayhaps a future carry, and Oskizu is thinking about actually stealing away that Elvira pick from Sama. She did so much work. Unfortunately, last game was just so close from being able to clutch it out in the end game finally.
Can Oskizu do the same or even better? Getting a win with that Elvira at this time. Eins Ulgon? What's he scrolling to?
Ooh, it might get locked in here. You know that
Nah, full light team.
we got pretty excited. Oh man,
we just got excited just to see him.
Yeah, I'd say it's a Wallet Warrior team, but you know, technically the Savior Audit is free to play, saving your wallet as well.
Christie for extra ER.
Stacking ER on ER like that stacks. No, the Ocean Breeze Luluka will be the pick instead.
Works just like a charm against that Sea Lilius. Extra turns. Samuhrado about to finish the draft. Is this enough? Would you feed Laya for the damage? Some protection with the Armin. What do you finish up with? Your tournament line could be relying on this final pick. 7 seconds.
Sam has his options. This draft scheme is extremely flexible, even though it doesn't seem like it. Laya is.
Let's see.
You see how much. Wow! Wukong gets locked in against the Auden, against the Dragon Bright Senya. I mean, resisting the penetration, that's exactly what you want him for. And now, finally, do we get to see this Eins Ulgon get hovered? Ooh, okay, no, looking like we're maybe pivoting away a little bit.
Just teasing us a little bit, Oskizu. Gala Lilius is the final pick.
Midnight Gala Lilius, so much green going on. You would have never thought that green would make such a strong comeback, such a strong revival. The Earth can't be put down. Laya, Ocean Breeze Luca, Immortal Wukong, and finally with Midnight Gala Lilius. This is going to be a match to remember, and hopefully it won't be as the last one Samu has in the tournament. Back up against the wall, he needs to prove himself here, or he'll be going home for good.
That's right. Divine and the bands, Ocean Breeze, Luluka, Gala, Lilius. Post-banned out. Is this
not
enough damage
at all? Gala Lilius is extremely strong versus two of Sam's characters, while Ocean Breeze Luluka is just always there, pushing herself combat readiness wise, being a rebuttal to the Conqueror Lilius opener. Both players are adjusting their imprints right now, maybe thinking through their initial turns, because we know that Conqueror Lilius is going to be going first. And would she have enough tempo to push back against this Laya? We will find out right now in the finals of the European Regionals of the E7WC 2024.
That's right. Game number 2, Samuhrado's tournament life on the line. Oskizu, one game away from being the champion of Europe. Lilius,
that's a lot of debuffs landing for a team that might want to have had a little bit more spread towards the ER. It's not the worst fare, especially unless we get a follow-up attack already from the Landy, but the response comes out clear with Yufine crawling up the board with some combat readiness of her own.
Oh man, that is the best dual attack for the Conqueror Lilius as well. Landy wants to try to charge that fighting spirit, while the counter attack for Yufine, 2 stacks of fighting spirit already for her. Procs the Elber's Ritual Sword counter attack as well as Aiden's, and now 40%, 60%, 80% fighting spirit for the Yufine. I think she's ahead of this Navy Captain Landy, looking really good in this mirror match.
That frenzied strike for the trauma might be hitting soon enough. Here's Wukong.
Well then, let's get wild.
Staring down the entire board state, he's gonna drop his staff. We fish for the hit on
counterattack on a single target there. Landy has one clear rule when it comes to operating on the sea,
Salvation,
and that is thou shalt not get away with it.
On
the sword comes down clear, and it blows her up immediately. There's no protection. What was the Armin even there for? Immediately, the linchpin of Samu's trap deleted off the face of the board, and she might not be the only one saying goodbye just so soon. The Dragon Bride Senya is following up with plenty of damage to turn them to dust.
Samu shaking his head.
Goes for the soul burn as well. Extra attack is going to come through. Carmen,
now that's 2 down.
Gone.
Despair.
Wukong, the lone soldier, hanging on. The Laya eats another dual attack, drags the Savior Autumn this time. So much damage coming through. I don't think Sama has it. Pulls the dual attack, and now
another counter!
This
You're not allowed! I don't want to hear any of it. Get this nonsense off my ship, says Landy.
I have to smash the manners into you.
Wukong,
here's this one.
Staff. We got the last
Another counterattack! Are you allowed to stop? No! There is no stopping on this ship! Full speed ahead towards victory for Oskizu 2-0, representing the Eastern Division, representing Europe in its entirety, right here, right now. The steely-eyed Dan wins it once more, ladies and gentlemen. Give it up to him.
Oskizu, the only player so far. No loss. 0 games lost from any other player through the qualifiers. Samu in the finals had really tried hard, but just was not enough. Man, Oskizu had just a lot more in the pocket to pull out for the grand finals, and it is just a 2-0 score. Oskizu is going to that main matches representing Europe server.
Oh man, looking back at this replay too, once again we see Oskizu put the tank and tank down, somehow always finding a draft that's going to survive any amount of onslaught Sama puts. And on top of that, being able to find enough damage to take down the beast, I think is what really impressed me about his style of play. You know, the Shu barely chipping down enough HP, Laya misses kill, and thus letting the Yufine drop those Elbrus procs, the counterattacks, eating away at his HP total until eventually Sama just melts into the ground.
Oh man, the highlight is just painful. Samu lets some damage after losing that Landy in the post-ban. And in the game after that,
the combat readiness here.
Oh yes, Divine. Sorry to cut you off there.
No, I was gonna say just a fight between combat readiness for both of these units, but you can't be building up combat readiness when you're dead in a grave. And unfortunately, the miss there, the counterattack there, and then finally the Hammer of Dawn, shining bright as it is, coming down onto the head of Yufine, sealed the coffin and sealed Samu's fate. Right then, it was an open and shut case.
And game 2 as well. We got to see the classic Conqueror Lilius with the Navy Captain Landy, the synergy. That's what Oskizu made his name with. And now, once again, using that ability, figuring out the strong combos, sends himself to represent the Europe server into the main stages for E7WC 2024. What a set.
Oskizu has done it. A lot more 2-0s in Europe from the others. Actually, did not have this many 2-0s, but just happened to have a lot more 2-0s coming down from the European server. Now, I think it's time that we hear a little bit from the champion, the best of EU. Oskizu, whenever it's ready, let's just toss it. Do you have any special questions to Oskizu, guys?
How do you stay so calm, cool, and collected throughout the entire tournament? How do you stay such a steely-eyed, surefire champion representing all of Europe there? That's my question. What about you, Val?
I think for me is how he comes up with these strong combos time and time again. The combos that he can pull out, we might or might not have seen them before, but he identifies where these units are so strong, and oh man, I really want to hear his thought process behind these drafts.
All right, we got 3 questions. I believe the interview is ready. Oskizu, let's get to hear from him. Oskizu, congratulations! You are the best from Europe, the EU best player. How do you feel right now?
I feel very proud of myself, actually. I initially wasn't even planning to qualify for Europe because I didn't have much time, but tough. But I did it, so I'm very happy.
일단 지금 우승하셨는데 승리 소감 어떠십니까? 라고 하니까 굉장히 지금 자랑스럽고 시간상 참여를 못할 수도 있었는데 어떻게 참여를 하게 됐고 이렇게까지 왔다고 합니다. So of course, very proud, should be the first. And let's talk a little bit because Adventurer Ross is a hero that no one else picks. What is up about that combo? Can you tell us a little bit more about behind the pick?
Okay, because I don't have certain units, so I thought I should prepare some knights because I was most likely gonna get target ban, like the Khhm, which happened twice today. So I prepared Heiras because it goes well with Candy, but also with Yufin. Sometimes you can S3 with Yufin turn 1 if you get lucky. So I wanted to try Heiras and it worked very well.
질문은 역시 모라스를 사용했는데 어쩌다가 모라스를 사용하게 됐나요? 라고 물어봤습니다. 그리고 대답은 없는 캐릭터가 몇 개 있다고 합니다. 그 사이에 기사를 좀 더 준비해야겠다고 생각한 게 이렇게 타겟 밴이 상대편에서 조금 나올 수 있다고 생각했기 때문에 이렇게 모라스를 준비했고, 그리고 랑디와 유핀의 이런 영웅들과 시너지가 굉장히 좋았기 때문에 따로 준비했다고 합니다. Alright, now we know a little bit more about Heiras. And of course, another question. You're the best from Europe. You're certainly the best from Europe. Did you expect this to happen? And who was the toughest opponent of the day?
I did not expect to win, actually. I was expecting KHM to actually win this event. And my toughest opponent, I think, was Samu so far. So, yeah, I chose everyone, but Samu was the tougher one, I think.
네, 일단 오늘 이렇게 우승까지 하게 됐는데 오늘 과정에서 가장 어려웠던 상대가 누구였냐고 이렇게 물어봤습니다. 그리고 일단은 KHM 선수가 가장 끝까지 가서 올라갈 줄 알았는데 굉장히 강력한 선수가 많았고, 그리고 오늘 대전하는 상대로서는 사무가 가장 강력한 상대였다고 이렇게 합니다. And another question, of course, we are wondering why. Of course, you're guaranteeing at least $2,005 in the main matches because you're already top 8. And the question is, are you going to get a better camera? We want to see you in 720, 1080, 4K resolution.
I should. This webcam is very old, like at least 10 plus years old, so I'm sorry, guys.
That's alright. We just want to capture more of your beauty, Oskizu. 일단 질문은 카메라가 안개가 굉장히 많이 낀 것 같은데 새로운 카메라를 살 의향이 있는지 물어봤는데 이 카메라 굉장히 오래된 카메라라고 합니다. 당연히 살짝 미안하다고도 말하고 당연히 새로운 카메라 더 좋은 카메라로 나중에 찾아뵙겠다고 합니다. And congratulations once again. It's your time to have the shout out final words to anyone you want to say. It's your time.
I'd like to shout out my guild and KHM especially because he helped me so much in these times. I started playing RTA just for him, so shout out to KHM especially.
일단 마지막 하고 싶은 말 있으면은 오스키즈 선수 하십시오 했는데 일단 기사단한테 도와준 기사단 멤버들한테 굉장히 고맙다고 하고 특히 KHM 선수에게 연습도 도와주고 그리고 RTA를 이렇게 실내나를 시작하게 된 이유가 KHM 때문이라고 합니다. 네, 이렇게 인터뷰 마치겠습니다. 오스키즈, congratulations once again. I'll see you in the main matches. Congratulations, EU Best Player 2024. All right. Oskizu certainly is getting a better camera because he has certainly a lot of weeks before we get into that main stage.
And then even if he wins from there, then he gets flown out to Korea, and then we don't have to worry about the camera situation at all. But you know, I really got to applaud him on his ability to capture the situation, right? He saw that the code was Ross, spring of information, just went for Ross immediately and was able to secure such an easy win. That's the kind of ingenious attitude that makes winners around here.
Yeah, that's crazy because not everyone has all the heroes, all the equipments, but knowing what you have going down the list and picking the exactly right move against the top tier opponents, he pulled it through all the way as a European best. Vaki, any final comments before we close today?
You absolutely took the words right out of my mouth, G-Clef. I think it is such a pleasure to see a player like this construct a strategy and then take it all the way. And I will absolutely still be cheering him on next week during the main stages when he will be going up against possibly many more stronger players from other regions as well.
Yes, other regions as well. As you have just mentioned, this is the updated tournament tree. Oskizu standing alone as the best from Europe going to the main matches. But guys, we are not over yet. This is only the Europe server. We got big 2 servers coming up. Next will be Asia, and then one after that will be Korea. Some big names on this list, as you can see. Some hype matches coming up next week.
I'm already eyeballing a few of them. Omega, we all know and love Elf Mage, but him aside, the second very strong speed style player from Asia server, as well as Hazma Ray, like topping the charts in almost every single big event he's in. So great big names. They're going to come up huge, and I am keeping my eyes peeled from the audience.
Exactly. You find noticeable IDs coming into your eyes?
Of course, Biru and Nezuko, classic combatants that we've seen all over the place. Excited to see their matches as well, and anyone else who can vie for the same level of competitive frequency as what we've had here in today's tournaments. These servers get to have 2 combatants go forward, right? And I think having that variety of strategies come out, hopefully seeing two people from one server, each with their own unique flavor and play style, will make the final event that much more hype.
Oh man, the tournament, the qualifiers just gets better and better each time we go through the server. Global, done. Japan, closed. EU, found out. Oskizu. Next will be Asia, and then Korea. Then we'll have a few more weeks of balance patch, New Moon Luna, event matches, and then into the main matches. Guys, we still have weeks and weeks of competition to go through. It's just awesome to have E7WC every single year. We're right in the middle of July into August. Thank you so much for joining me, gentlemen. Divine, any final words before we close tonight?
Of course. I just wanted to say, Gimmick, happy birthday. I know we didn't get to you early on that,
Always
but I hope
happy
you're having
birthday.
a wonderful birthday out there, of course. And as I always like to say, thank you everyone in the community for giving me another chance, not only to cast for you, but to cast with my best man Valk over there. What do you got to say?
Absolutely. It's always a pleasure whenever we get to freak out over some crazy plays, some mad RNGs, and especially some spicy drafts. I ate great tonight. I hope you guys in the chats did as well. And I can't wait to see what Asia bracket has for us, because we know they got some powerhouses over there.
They certainly do. They have the equipments, they have the speed, they have crazy knowledge, intelligence in terms of draft. It's been a pleasure. Gentlemen, Divine Bucket, thank you so much for joining for a double through Japan and EU, and thank you all for watching European qualifiers. We will continue next week with Asia qualifiers. E7WC 2024 is just at the beginning stages. We'll see you next week. Thank you for tuning in and have an epic weekend.